That sounds about right, yeah. I mean, it's as
You
good a
nailed it.
description as any.
So, Lane, will you tell us what playtest is?
Uh, yeah, you got it. Yeah, one sec. It's the place where I am an idiot and leave the YouTube stream open, among other technical issues. Yeah, welcome everybody. This is the Twin Cities playtest, and this is where we invite any developer in the Twin Cities or friends to join us and show off their wares, and also just to like have a chat about their design in progress. And today we've got three there in progress. I'm like genuinely very excited tonight because we have a returning fan favorite, and we also have a couple of people who are sort of new to the server and are showing off like brand new projects that you guys haven't seen before. And the first up, I'll go through all three, but then I'll bring this gentleman on stage. Is Tommen, who is showing us Catalog, which is a game that some of you folks have had a chance to play over in the Discord server. Dale, did you have a chance to check that out?
Nope.
Nope,
I haven't
I
checked
haven't checked anything out.
I also
I
have
also have technical difficulties.
so
So Mark, why would a developer want to participate in a playtest?
Couple reasons. One is, I'm not quite sure if this thing is working. I should see, get it tested. It seems like a normal, reasonable, reason why you want to get something tested. But that's like, there's more to it than that, right? Because when you test your game, you get feedback that you didn't know you needed. And you also get the validation of, hey, my game is actually working. It's not just to see what's wrong with it; it's to see what's right with it, so you know like what direction to lean into. Especially as you just get past the prototype stage and you're thinking, well, I kind of know where this is going, but now I need to validate my thinking. And so playtest is for that and more. Also, it's just a lovely time.
Say you're not a developer and you want to participate in playtest because you love giving people feedback, both good and bad. How would you do that?
Oh, you mean on this stream?
Yeah.
Well, you can join our Discord. You can go to discord.igdatc.org, and that'll give you an invite to the Twin Cities Game Dev Discord. And from there, we can have you join our event stage, which is where everybody here in the chat room is speaking from. And we can have you play our games with a service called Parsec, which is a remote desktop application that's really well suited for latency sensitive use cases like games. And so all the instructions for that are in the Discord events info channel on the Discord. But yeah, the link is discord.igdatc.org, and that will get you in the space and the instructions. And if you want to join, just chime in on chat and let us know.
Dale, would you mind if I take over for a moment here?
Yes, that's fine.
Great. I'd like to do something a little bit unusual for this stream, which is that we've got
Wait,
a big
what? I take
panel.
it back. I take it back. I want the thing back.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
We
Go
got
ahead. So what?
Dale, we've
We got
got
a
a huge panel tonight. We've got us three, and then we've got three developers showing their games, and who are joining us for the entire night, I believe. And then we also have
Wow.
returning playtester extraordinaire, Zach Gilbert. So I want to be able to go around real quick and just ask people what they've brought tonight, and just maybe a little bit about themselves.
Say your name so we can recognize your voice.
Yes, please. Let's begin with Zach. What you've been working on, and yeah, tell us about anything you want to plug.
Hi, I'm Zach. I have been working on a unnamed rogue light card deck builder, and I'm just here to play games tonight. SquidlandGames.com.
Thank you. All right, let's go over to Tommen.
Great. My name is Thomas. My username on here is Toman, as you can see, and I brought Catalog, which is a game that I made for a university club that I just released a little while ago. Genre-wise, it's a little bit hard to describe, but there's some side-scrolling, some shooting. It's all in 2D, all hand-drawn. And that's it's the overview.
Yeah, I can't wait to get into that. I think it has a extremely interesting design, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what Mark in particular has to say about this. Just because I mean, Mark, you'll see what I mean immediately. But there's so much that I love about this game, and I'm curious about how best to surface it, or I guess make it a little bit easier for idiots like me to play. Next up, I'm curious to bring in let's bring in Luke. What you been working on?
Hey, howdy folks, my name's Luke, Victor Zulu on Discord. I'm working on Burn Depth. It's an underwater horror game, kind of Subnautica crossed with Iron Lung. This is my first real game that I've been working on, and working on it for a few months, at least in this iteration. In the basic iteration, I'm working on it for 18 months. But I'm excited to have you guys look at it. You were the first people to ever play at this game that was not me.
Yeah, I'm also thrilled to have our first horror game on the stream. Oh, I'm sorry, Mark, for cutting you off.
Oh, I was just saying, I'd love to hear that this is its first first showing, right? It's the cotillion or whatever. It comes out in the world.
Yes. And lastly, and definitely not least, fan favorite bit. I am curious, Jason. How's your audio doing?
I don't know. Is it okay?
Yo, you sound excellent. Congratulations. Okay. And can you tell us a little bit about what you've been working on?
Yeah. So it's I'm not gonna say the whole title. Ma and Pa's Astro Mining. It's basically a attempt to make a turn-based shmup. I think that's about the size of it, right? I don't know. I think I've spent a lot of time talking to my friends about. I don't know. I guess especially around the time when Ikaruga came out, and people just they want to play games like that, but they get real turned off by the whole bullet hell part of it. It just stresses them out. And I was trying to figure out a way to make that more manageable. I think because as I get older, it also stresses me out, but I still like playing shmups. So I was I suppose I could make this a little easier by making it turn-based. So that's the attempt. We'll see if I'm pulling it off or not.
I can't wait. When we were making Vengeance last year, when we were closing that out, one thing that we were always wrestling with is you have an extremely tight player sanity budget in a bullet hell, and you want to do interesting things, but people can only handle so much. And so I'm really eager to see what you can do in that game.
Yeah, I am too.
All right. Well, shall we get into Toman's game?
Do it.
Oh, just a side note
Yeah.
real quick. I did upload a build just now specifically for this playtest that should have a few extra fixes in it, but of course I understand if it's no longer possible to use that one instead.
Well, I saw you mention that in the chat. I'm looking at the itch page, and it says 25 days ago. So I don't see the. Oh, it's you. You see, you made a new version. I see. Never mind. Well, why don't we?
Yeah.
I can get that. Should we move to Ma and Pa's Astro Mining? Just go right to that one first. Give me time to get this up.
That sounds good.
All right, Lane, is that all right? Messing with your schedule?
That is awesome. Jason, you ready?
Yeah, I can be ready. It's fine.
Perfect.
Right. So
I'm not sure how long we're really gonna spend with it, but yeah, it's gonna try.
Who do we have to play?
Well, I'm going to toss in Zach.
Okay, yeah, I'm in. I got it.
And Zach, favor for us in the show, could you restream to Discord so that we can watch in real time?
Absolutely. Am I parsecing in, or do I have a download, or?
Parsec. And you're old hat at this. You know what to do, right?
It's been a while. I think I have TC Playtest. Oh, there's an echo now.
You got it.
Yep.
Dude, Ben is in the chat. Welcome, Ben.
And I'll give you keyboard control, right? This is a keyboard-only game, is that right?
Yeah. It is.
All right.
I think the Discord's running over this computer too. I can hear myself. This is hard to talk.
It is rough. I remember that from my days in tech support when that would happen.
Yeah. Do you ever get used to that? Is that a thing the human brain can overcome?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely did. it's actually happening to me right now, and I'm just ignoring it.
Dang. Dude, okay, like I'm just watching this through the YouTube right now. I am delighted that you're on the stream because like even if you feel like not much has changed, I love the interface. I think that you've made huge strides on that.
Yeah, I mean the sorry, like the tutorial stuff there is obnoxious, but I mean it's I needed something there, so you know, if someone random wants to play it, there's at least some kind of a reminder of like how to play it.
Yeah.
And that
What do
stuff
you
goes away as you use it, but
Oh yeah. What it goes to okay. So if I press like W, that like top thing would go away?
yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, it's literally just there as a reminder. I think like after you do your second, like after you do the first run through, you're like, yeah, I got it, and you can just ignore that stuff, and it'll just go away as you play. There's some other smaller reminders and stuff in there.
Yeah.
You can press R at any time to restart it. It'll pop up a screen with like a little bit of info, but it's not nearly as comprehensive even as it was last time. There's no alternate mission types right now. It's literally just this one. But I completely rebuilt the input system and like how
Yes.
the whole
Interesting.
playfield is managed.
Hmm.
So what it's doing now, I don't know if you remember last time, it was an action queue, and then you had suggested the was a command pattern, and I tried that, and it actually felt worse to me because it was just like I don't know, it just didn't. It somehow felt I don't know. It's like you could just outrun it, and then it kind of felt like it was even more sluggish.
Yeah.
So now you can just do whatever you want whenever you want a whole time, and it'll respond. But it can get you can't overrun, but it can get so messy to the point where you really can't see anything. But I sort of did that on purpose to try to throttle, like psychologically throttle input. But like if you're on a run and you know what you're doing and you know exactly what you want to do, it'll accept everything. There's a lot about the interface I actually don't like. I'm glad that you like it. It means I'm on the right track. But there's some stuff about it I kind of hate right now.
Well, we'll talk us through that. What do you hate here?
I don't like the pluses and minuses. They're just big and goofy, and like I feel like they don't. I don't know. I feel like that can be a lot better. You know, obviously there's no tutorial, so you're just kind of figuring it out as you go. You know, that's all going to be a problem. But I think last time Mark even brought up that he didn't think that the number of elements would be an issue. It's just kind of a matter of easing people into it, and I think that's probably true. And right now it doesn't do that, so you don't really even know what all that stuff does down there. You kind of have to just play with it for a second, and then you sort of start to figure it out.
I think there's definitely an easier in. Like I can start to see, like maybe I don't know what this is, but at least I know that it relates to this thing that's on. You know, there seems to be things feel a lot more cohesive, and I think it's okay to be a little confused at the start or to not like totally handhold. But I think all the tools are there for the user to figure it out.
Yeah. I think so. I like, I don't know what it is, but I like some of my favorite gaming memories are getting dropped into a world I don't understand and then just like nailing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm not giving any player a chance to even do that because there's just too much stuff. So I would like to at least make that possible, right? And I think like staged introduction of some of this stuff will help a lot with that, like with the tutorial level. But so I'm not too concerned about that. But
jumping out to me is I feel like you have a like resource collection and spending mechanic, and I feel like that is that's the main thing I'm not understanding right now.
Yeah. I think they like. I feel like for the most part the UI is not too jarring, and I really like the subtle like background. I think that looks really good and isn't all that distracting, which is surprising for how much is moving.
There's one thing that's distracting me. I'll bring it up later.
I think like the biggest issue I've had so far is that like the text that is outside of this bottom box here took me a while to recognize as being related to those things. And I kind of just naturally figured out by hitting all of the buttons that the up does the middle, and like that all makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I added that 45 minutes ago.
Oh, okay.
So I think that there will
yeah.
probably be some kind of iconography like in the little windows
Mm.
themselves to indicate that. But
Yeah.
I'm not actually even sure if that's necessary given the fact that I want to put a tutorial in there anyway. So, the idea would be, oh, you've collected enough to do this, and then you just do it by using the tools that they've given you already. That they, who's they? Me. But the tools you've been given. But like, it's really going to shake out in the tutorial. I think is gonna help make some of the stuff make more sense.
Speaking of the mysterious they, this is a Godot game, right?
It is.
Beautiful. Dude, can we just acknowledge for a sec that planet is actually rotating in the background? I just noticed that. That must have taken so long to do. That's beautiful.
There were several more layers of effects in here, like dust and all that stuff, and I realized the stupidity of writing a shader that generates infinite noise on the fly. And it was just completely crushing the performance, so I had to take that stuff out. I have a way of doing it just using like a repeated texture, which will be fine, I think, because that's how the planet works. I can probably just do that, but yeah, it actually looked a lot better, I think, in the previous version, but I also wanted to throw some more post-processing stuff on there, but I haven't quite wrapped my head around how to do that super well with Godot, and it doesn't. Some of the stuff I want to be able to do, it doesn't do super well, or at all with a web build. Not to mention, no audio still. I'm really bummed about that because I think what's going to be a great idea because I did some playing around with just listening to music while I was playing it and kind of getting a feel for it. And I think I have an idea that's going to be really fun.
I love that the top 4 things everybody knows about Bit is like number 1, that super cool song that you posted just recently. Number 2, that your mic never works. Number 3, that you make excellent video game music, and number 4, that you don't do it for yourself. You're like Merlin.
The top 3 things are 4 things.
Yes.
I love
it. So does anybody have an idea of what to do about those big pluses? Because I agree, they don't quite fit.
Yeah, they're just ugly and gross.
You're talking about the grid.
Ooh, I'm actually talking about he's got like when you collect something, when you collect a resource, it does this big cartoon plus on the UI.
I actually like the grid because it looks like kind of NASA photo stuff.
Yeah, the grid works for me. Yeah, I think
it seems fine.
The big pluses. Yeah, I kind of agree. They're a little bit. You can just have everything's already got an outline around it, so you could just flash that outline.
I did that too, but I felt like I couldn't and I was expecting it and just didn't notice it. But maybe I could just make it bigger or something, like make it blow out a little bit more or something.
Yeah.
I thought maybe the icons rather than the outlines themselves flashed.
What if you not only make the outline flash, but also make the outline like bigger?
Yeah,
not just brighter.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. I didn't want to overwhelm the space with like more lines and things, which is why I used the thin ones. So I didn't even try the thicker ones, though I have an element that you can, like when you pop open the tactical options menu, when you hit space, you can see I have one that has like a double thick line around it. So I could just use that instead.
Yeah, just like move it and like... The other thought that I have that I don't know is a good one is, like when that plus pops up and I'm watching on the stream, so I'm not watching real time, is it like it gets bigger and floats up? Maybe just making it get bigger and then float down, so it's less kind of in your face or in the place where your vision is focused.
Yeah,
might help it be less intrusive, but I don't really know how that will.
Yeah, no, I mean that's great. The one thing I didn't try, weirdly, is making all of them move down, because I think I'm struggling with the idea of like implied symbolism versus like actual attention, meaning the minuses originally went down and the pluses went up in order to differentiate the two. But when the stuff goes down, you notice it less because it's just moving further away from the play field, which is where you're kind of concentrating. But I think that making the outlines thicker, making those flash, and then maybe making the icons flash will probably work. I mean, I can try all kinds of stuff with that, right?
Yeah, the other thing is you might have it like pop up and then just float down and off screen as if it was a firework, like the smoke from a firework as the wind blows it because you're moving forward.
Like lean into the mobile design aesthetic and just like put
Yeah,
particles
apparently
everywhere.
that's what I'm thinking. I mean, like, don't do it so it slows it down, but like just so like it fades off screen, like you're driving or paddling past it.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I think
Um,
having the like I kind of just want to keep it inside the box. Like you have that blue outline for the abilities. Like if you just throw that on there, flash it, and then have the number itself, like kind of like a register or old style alarm clock, like bounce up or bounce down to change the figure. You know what I mean? So you can keep that symbolism of up or down, but have it focused on what the player actually looks at. So like when the plus flies up or the minus flies up, I'm looking at the plus or the minus. I'm not looking at the number. So I don't remember what the number was before, and then I look at it and I go, okay, that is now 83. So it must have been 82 before, or maybe 80 before, or something. And so you have to do like this weird little like math in your head. Like it's not like a big burden, but like it throws the flow off a little bit. But I think if you flash and then at the end of the flash the number bounces up or down. So if the player notices the flash, they're actually seeing the number change because they're looking at the number and not an extra UI element on the thing.
Right. Yeah, I guess I was thinking about it more like a fishing rod, like get their attention and then they'll pay attention to the right thing. But you're right, you just keep staring at you just keep staring at the little thing instead of looking at the value.
Yeah, I think that it gets it's really easy with UI to start like just adding things until you get the player's attention, but then all you're doing is getting the attention on the things you've added.
Yeah, right. Very true.
All right, Zach, how are things feeling?
So like I think it feels real good. I like the snappy movement. I think it's really intuitive. And I like kind of like the puzzle like elements of it. I feel like, and I don't know where you're at with this, like level wise, like this feels way too long.
Yes, I was gonna say the same thing.
Like having lost that with that much time into a game seems weird for something with a puzzle feel to it.
Yes, I totally hear you. So there's two things that are probably not registering. Well, there's a few, but the first one is, excuse me, sorry, the bottom left icon, the little satellite dish looking thing.
Yeah.
Is that your time?
That's your signal strength.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And every time you move forward, so you can move forward 100, right?
Well, sort of. So occasionally you'll see little signal relays or satellites on the playfield, and they add one as long as they're on the playfield. So if you have two, your signal increases. So you actually go back up. So you're getting more time.
Not for shooting them, for not shooting them.
For not shooting them.
Okay.
And if you do shoot them, you can pick up some salvage, which you can use for the stuff. But the goal is to collect 100 ore. So if you run out of time and you don't, right? So there's kind of a trade-off there. You can destroy them and pick up the salvage to use for your options, or you can just let them ride and try and get some time back, like stall a little bit if your ore count is way too low. So it's kind of it's risk and reward. Like early on, it's less of a risk because you have so much time left, or signal strength, quote unquote, that it's not as big of a deal. But I'm gonna have to do like a really deep look at how I'm structuring these clumps of obstacles and how they generate and stuff, because right now they're random, but they're not completely random. They're 5x5 grids, right? So it's like the Spelunky thing, right, where you're doing chunks and it randomly picks chunks. But they're not always fun in combination, and that's a thing I'm gonna have to deal with. But it would, I tried a few different things with this, and like one of them was, just having the spawn rate for the the signal relays a lot lower, but then it got almost impossible to beat it. And then this was the one where I felt most comfortable, because even though it was it felt a little long, it was possible to beat it, and then it was also possible to like destroy it. Like I did one run where I picked up like 244 of the ore or something, but I also lost several times because I got a bad had a bad run, or I wasn't paying attention or whatever. So yeah, that's going to require like dialing in the play length of each one is definitely going to require some thinking about how I generate the chunks of the level. It's also going to have implications for what the actual current contract is. So like this is the collect 100 ore contract, but some of them are going to be salvage contracts. Some of them are going to be destroy 100% of the asteroids, just like they were in the last one. And it completely changes the way you play or like what you focus on. So, I mean, the other option too is just to make the signal relay tick down faster, right? Like, you can do that too. So yeah, there's a lot of balancing for it. That was all to answer the one of the things that I brought up. The second one was, as you play this, you get much faster at inputting and making decisions because you actually understand like the mechanics better, and that playtime goes down dramatically.
Yeah, I can see that.
The first few times I did it, I was like playing for like a while, and I was like, man, I gotta do something to make this quicker. And then I just started making moves more intuitively and actually looking at the UI less, which is weird because there's all these UI things I want to address. But ultimately, like when you start to get good at it, you barely even look at the UI anymore. So it's kind of this weird. I don't know. It's like this weird thing where I guess I could have a setting where you could like turn some of the stuff just off if you don't need it anymore. But especially when you're first getting used to like how everything works, like you definitely need that stuff there. So I don't know how those two things are going to shake out because they're kind of at odds, but I don't want to say that I'm going to lean towards too much information because that's also bad, but there has to be enough, right? For everybody, there has to be enough. So yeah,
would it be possible to do like a mission at the start where there like were no satellites or something, so you just didn't have to care about that thing?
Yep.
Yeah, just I'm sure that you've already thought about this, but like early on, like could you like design the mission so that like you introduce as little stuff as possible?
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called, but I know there's like a sort of whatever schema or theory or whatever about like the frequency of novelty in a game. And I don't want to throw it all out there right away, right? It definitely needs to be like a boil.
Yes. Well, and I do have another thing I want to say, which is I like even still knowing that Zach, like, okay, let me you can tell me I'm wrong here, but what I heard was Zach said, "Hey buddy, the one problem I'm having is these levels are too long." And then you said, "Hey buddy, here's a way to make the levels longer." I think that that's kind of a problem. I do strongly agree with Zach that like for a puzzle type experience, especially one where getting it versus not getting it is a big thing. I would say that like having really bite-sized early levels is going to help a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and because it feels like it has a puzzle component, I feel like players, like you can make a really long level fun, but it just depends on what you tell the player about it. And so I think you should try making the very shortest level you possibly can and see how fun that is. But like start from there and then go longer, and then not to create early levels, but just to see for yourself what the perfect level length is, and then you make the tutorial level half that long or something. You know.
Yeah, I mean, for the tutorial level, I literally was considering like it's just Ma or Pa or whoever I decide is like the dispatcher, just telling you what to do. Just shoot that asteroid. So you move left and you shoot it, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah, I think you can do I think this game is perfectly suited to a very hand-holdy tutorial. I think that's fine. Because
I mean, like Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, you have, like narratively, you have this. You were talking about this last time you had it on, which is the concept of the signal strength and the fact that this is a remote drone. Like that actually, you do kind of need to explicitly tell players that, unless you want, you know, and so like you kind of are already burdening yourself with a little bit of like intro time, and so you can roll that into a tutorial component as well. And I mean,
that could be one line, just.
Yeah, and I feel like you can throw it all in this very hand-holdy tutorial, which is just literally press this button, press this button, press this button, and as long as you're sort of charming the user with the aesthetic and the story and the character, then they take that with them as they play through this, you know, purely mechanics-driven puzzle thing. Once you seed that idea with them, then you don't have to burden them with like cutscenes later on or whatever, you know, just front-load it, I think.
That is exactly the thing I'm hoping works.
Yeah.
That I can do that.
Well, you know, one thing about about the length of the level, and it's like the levels seem long, but the reason they seem long isn't necessarily because they are long. I mean, I think they are long, but that's not actually the problem, I don't think. The problem is that because it's turn-based and the player, and you've sort of identified this, the player decides how long it takes, right, by how fast they play. Right. But the thing is that the background is always streaming by you very quickly. And I think that actually is the single reason why it feels even longer. Like imagine that the screen was frozen, like the background as well, and the parallax only, you know, the background only moved when the character moved up a little bit, right? Like imagine it worked like that. Then you could play one level for 25 minutes and it actually wouldn't feel as long as it would feel if the thing was streaming by the whole time.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
difficult.
Well,
yeah, I do though. Yeah,
because I think that as a, you know, you have the like. There's some just general disconnect. Like you have the lasers hanging out in midair, and I love that little wiggly.
It's so cool.
That's so perfect. I mean, I think it's remind people of, you know, effects like that are done in film when lasers are frozen in time or whatever. Like I think that's incredibly intuitive. I think that's brilliant. But the background streams by at full speed, and I think it's perfectly fine to have like, you know, all the individual components, you know, rotating and animating. I think you want it to look nice and you want it to have a little juice, so you don't need to make it like really frozen in time. But I think that background, I think that's your number one problem. If it, you know, you can have maybe as long as just the scrolling by was tied to player movement, you can have all the, you know, the background elements do also move, right? They don't just go up and down; they actually rotate, or I don't know. Anyway, I think you should give that a try and see, because I think that will really help players feel like the level is as long as they make it, you know.
Yeah, I'll definitely try that. That's going to be really hard for me to judge on success or not until the next playtest, because for me it's like I'm so used to it that like it just. But maybe not. Maybe I try it and I'm like, oh damn, this is great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I had considered that, and I think I just threw that idea out immediately because it just didn't seem like it would make that big of a difference.
Right. It feels like a visual choice.
Because you are right.
It
is a. Sorry.
Yeah, it feels like a visual choice, but I really think it's a lot more than that. I think it is really going to affect how people feel about the gameplay.
Yeah, I think that's what I overlooked, is that it's actually almost as much a psychological choice as it is a visual choice. If it works, right, that'll bear out. So.
Yeah. Sorry, Toman, you were about to say?
I was just saying that that was like I completely agreed with the idea of the streaming background. It's one of the first things that I noticed, specifically like all the dust and kind of like that stuff rolling by. I didn't feel like I was stationary in time at all. I felt like I was hovering in space, but not in time. Like there was the flow of time felt very normal. So I definitely agree that that's part of what's extending playtime, like psychologically.
You know,
while we're on the topic of the background, I'm gonna let you buy some time here, Jason, because I need to get this off my chest. Yeah. What kind of a planet are we around? Where are these asteroids coming from? Is this like a ringed planet, or are we out like in? It is.
Yes.
It is. Is this a gas giant?
No. This is a a Class M.
What?
But it's a ringed planet. Yeah. There's
Excuse me. How? Okay. Wow. We are around a very rare planet here, aren't we? Because like it's extremely rare for rocky planets to have rings. Am I right? We don't know of any, right? This is amazing.
think so. Well, so the question is then that you're asking yourself is how did these rings
Yes.
get here? Are these rings part of the natural formation of this planet, or were they moved here from somewhere else?
Oh, I've tripped over my ignorance and fallen straight into lore. This is amazing. What a moment. Uh, let me like while I'm pontificating here, I was going to ask right now, at least as a complete newbie, I feel like my eyes would be sort of uncomfortably fixated on the 3-2-1 in the middle. And I'm kind of curious, would it be possible, do you think, to sort of use the environment or use the objects themselves to sort of represent how much time is left? What I was wondering is, like, would it be possible to have like a animation state or like a shake or something that may be easy to do on the asteroid saying like, I am about to move, that would help you gauge how much time you have left without fixating on the middle.
I think
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Oh, go ahead, man.
I find like both that it seems like that UI element is a little out of place. Just the 3-2-1 being like probably the most important UI element on the screen, but also that like maybe I'm just slow on the uptake on this one, but it took me a really long time, like just about now, to realize that the amount of energy I was storing is the amount of turns I had left.
Mm-hmm.
What? Okay, can you explain the energy storage mechanic? I just don't. I haven't been following that at all.
It's
Yeah,
new
so-
to me too.
Yeah, if he hits down right now, he'll store 1 block of energy because he has 1 move left. So now he'll store 2 if he skips his turn, basically by pressing down.
Oh, so you skip to the next enemy move action, basically.
The move action
Okay.
happens when your energy is depleted. Whether that's because you're using it to fire and move, or it's because you chose to store some amount of it or all of it or whatever.
Yo.
So if you just keep hitting down, it will just keep scrolling like it's a shmup. Like a
Okay.
regular.
Did you try pressing down equals only skipping like 1 time instead of to the next environment move turn?
Skips only. Say it again.
So like if I press right,
Mhm.
it like this is how my brain works. I don't know if this is how every player's brain works, but like if I press right, I consume 1 of my turns. I take 3 turns, then the world takes a turn. I take 3 turns, then the world takes a turn. If I
Right.
press right, I consume 1 of my turns. If I press down, I consume between 1 and 3 of my turns.
Right.
So what I'm wondering is like did you experiment with pressing down, consuming 1 of the player's turns? I'm curious like
Oh, I
how
see what
that
you're
would feel
saying.
compared to
I
this.
see what you're saying. So you're saying like adding 1 energy and only subtracting 1.
That would
Precisely, yeah.
That would really players would get the connection a lot closer. So you press down, and then it takes 1 off the score, and then adds it to your energy bar. Like then suddenly you know the relationship between those things.
Yeah. I think I did, and then maybe stupidly thought too far ahead and decided that that could be like a passive upgrade where you can do that. But your starter ship, you just always store whatever you have left or something. But maybe that's a stupid thing to do to like nerf it like that. I think the other part of it too was just purely psychological for me because the first way I did it was like this and I got used to it
Yeah.
and I got sick of hitting down, down, down every time I wanted to skip a turn. It was just easier to do it once.
Oh, that makes sense.
But
Yeah.
that's my problem, right? Like I think that's definitely worth exploring more. And it itched my brain about 3 weeks ago and I just ignored it and kept doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
I wanted to get more
Right.
stuff
It
in the game, but
introduces
that's
a little
definitely worth
friction,
trying.
but I think it's worth it for players.
Well, I mean,
to know
considering
that
the
they're
way
going to
everything
do.
else works, yeah, I think you're probably 100% right about that.
Yeah. Then it becomes 1 mechanic instead of 2. Your arrow keys determine what you do with 1 piece of energy.
Right. And that's always the same thing. It's
Ooh.
always 1 press 1 thing. Right?
Yeah.
What a great way to say it. Yep.
You could introduce a shortcut key, somewhere else on the keyboard that you can't accidentally hit
Or
for
like a
users who
press
get
and- a press and
annoyed.
hold.
But,
Yeah, like a
Well,
press and hold thing is kind of what I was thinking. But
I mean, press and hold can work, but players aren't going to love that. Like the people who
Oh, yeah,
want the
'cause it
shortcut
takes
really want the
longer.
shortcut.
yeah, they don't want it to take longer.
Yeah. So maybe that could be something you toggle, like extra button for.
Hmm.
But that actually brings up a question I want to ask. I think I don't know how much we talked about this last time, but as a vertically oriented game, this is essentially a mobile game. but it's keyboard only on PC here.
Right.
Have you thought about how? Because we're talking about like how the player engages with the inputs, but on mobile that's going to be very different, right?
Yeah, so it'll be swipe left, swipe right, swipe up, swipe down,
Yeah.
or tap the UI to bring up the thing, and then swipe in a direction.
Okay. So
Is my plan.
all along you've mapped it out to have a similar feeling.
Yeah, I want it to feel basically the same.
Okay.
Obviously, they're different gestures, but roughly the same idea. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's one thing you are going to have to you're going to have to test, because the further down in development you get that you haven't done a ton of mobile testing, it is going to feel different.
Yeah, for sure.
I have an interesting question. What why do the mines do 2 damage to you?
Because when it's an AOE or when it collides with you.
So you're saying I both blew it up and collided into it?
Well, if you hit it, then I think it does 5. No, because you would have been destroyed. It must do like 3.
Still would have been destroyed.
Well, I don't remember how many shields you had when
I
you
have
hit it.
had 3.
Oh, you had 3 of the plus, right? Did you have 1 of the purple?
Oh, is that a shield? Okay,
Yeah.
super tuned that out.
Yeah.
You're kind of breaking the rules of
course
color.
you
Like
do.
health is usually seen as green and shield are usually blue. That's just the world we live in. It's it's like it's annoying because you want to make your own choices. But I was going to ask.
No,
Zach,
I that's another thing I actually hate about it. But
Oh, yeah?
it is what it is right now. Yeah.
Zach, I wanted to ask you, how is that the first time you've gotten hit? Because I haven't been paying enough attention.
No, I've gotten hit a couple of times. A couple was on purpose. I did lose legitimately once, hitting into and it was kind of like a control mess up where I meant to hit the tactical option and I hit the down instead.
Oh, sure. Do you find that it is difficult to avoid getting hit?
No, I think as the goal of like if you're just trying not to get hit, it's super makes sense. And really easy to avoid. I think like it's mostly like the only threat is like stuff you are putting yourself into, and you mostly can see that coming because of just how methodical it is. With like nothing chasing you or moving on the screen, it's all like so predictable that it just move out of the way.
So you could see yourself making like a tactic, getting hit tactically in order to get to a certain thing. But so basically, I'm interrogating you because I'm working around with my question. For Bit, which is, why isn't this game one hit kill? Why is there 2 health metrics?
He can upgrade. You can upgrade the ship. I think that's the clear answer there.
Right, but again, I guess the question
remember that there's no enemy content in here yet, and that is going to make things a lot more difficult.
Okay.
It's one of the reasons, if you remember in the original one, when you fired your weapon, it just was like instantaneously destroyed whatever was in front of it, and now it's doing this thing where it's actually put into the world and then it moves along, right?
Right.
Whereas like the missiles, for instance, happen right away. That's like one of the advantages of them.
Yeah. I guess what I'm drilling down to is that you haven't added enemies in the game yet, so that's going to change how it feels, I guess, and how you might want to tactically get hit, or maybe want to survive a being hit once or twice. But I think maybe because I really want this game to be as puzzly as possible, I think you'd take away a lot of the player's overhead in terms of what they need to manage. If you just, made it one hit kill, because it also fits narratively. Like, this is a remote drone. It kind of should be weak. And it should feel like, and because, at least so far, it seems like getting hit or avoiding getting hit is trivial. And that will change, I imagine. But like, you could make that an advanced part of the advanced play. Like, it could be particularly hard to avoid enemies, and you can also make the game pretty challenging by introducing just 1 or 2 enemies in a certain area. I guess I'm just making the argument that I feel like these are mechanics you're not leveraging yet, and I don't.
Right.
And I say get rid of them, make it one hit kill, and then bring back a shield upgrade if you feel it would add value. Because there's nothing in the game yet that's utilizing it, and I don't know that you've proven it's something that's necessary.
So there are multiple different tactical options you're going to be able to equip.
Mhm.
So like that's why the costs down there, they appear static, but they're not, right? Like that first one has the little arrow on the first block, and
Yeah.
then the other ones have arrows on different blocks, and then they have different other costs associated with them. And so some of the tactical options specifically involve things like your shield. Like there's a shield burst where it damages, just like a mine, it damages everything around it,
Mhm.
but it also prevents you from taking damage, meaning you could be right next to a mine and deploy that and destroy the mine but not take any damage. You do lose one of your shield, but being hit by the mine does a lot more damage than just losing one of your shield. So that is one of the mechanics. It's actually in there, it's not equipped
Sure.
to the bar at the bottom, right? Because that's going to be up to the player how they want to equip the different tools that they have, or like earn different tools or buy them with the ore.
So that
Level, all
that ability will spare you an incoming piece of damage. That's its sort
Mhm.
of one of its main functions. So
Mhm.
I still don't see why I need health or shields for that. I already have to spend energy on that ability. So if I'm stuck in a corner and I have a bunch of energy, but I think I'm about to get hit, then I'll spend my energy to live another day, right?
I suppose, I guess the way I was thinking about it was so that there could be some kind of progression and upgrade set where,
Sure.
maybe you have a shield burst that costs one shield, but it's a low tier, so it's like a first tier low level cost, just like the gravity net, the
Yeah.
little tractor beam thing.
Mhm.
But maybe there's like a much better version of it that's expensive that doesn't cost it. Like it only costs one energy, so like you'd have a reason to like spend that extra ore on that thing. But I suppose all of that is predicated on like it's that thing of like I hate the idea of like making something stupid so that the player has a chance to make it better.
Mhm.
But at the same time, like that is what games are, though.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of
Mhm.
knowing when to deploy it and when to not do
Sure.
that.
Sure.
And I feel like what you're saying is super right, that it would be so much easier and like to get what was going on if that wasn't there. And I'm sure there's a way to do it, right? I mean, it could even just be energy based, where it's like, oh, the crappy shield burst costs 3 energy, and the really good one only costs 1, and the shield doesn't even come into it, right? And then
Yeah.
I mean, but with that kind of, to me, with that, it's like, well, then why even bother having the salvage mechanic for like additional cost? Because that's doing the same thing, right? It's just adding additional cost on top of the energy, which means there's more UI elements, which means there's more the player has to think about when they're doing stuff. But then again, it's like, well, how complex does this need to be fun?
Yeah.
And how
I think.
complex is too complex?
Yeah, I think there's a certain point where complexity can add depth, but it also very frequently can just add complexity. And I'm not I'm not concerned about usability necessarily. I mean, I think it is a little bit like I mean, you've made some of an argument for like a one slot shield, like that you have room for one and you can spend it by getting hit or whatever. I'm still not hearing anything that's telling me that why I need 3 hit points. But I think ultimately it's not just about making things simpler for the player. It is about making the systems just more elegant and more fun. Because I think
Right.
adding that extra stuff or adding extra hits, it only matters if the levels and the other mechanics make use of it. By themselves, it doesn't add any depth to the gameplay. I don't think.
I would disagree.
Yeah.
I think there is a mechanical advantage to health that is like actually complexity, and it's a little niche. It's kind of techy,
Mhm.
but like I have used this like just playing naturally. Like it made sense to me that like because everything you run into takes 1 health from you. If like for example you have one of these big rocks and you want that ore out of it, you can just run into it.
Yeah.
Mhm. That was kind of the idea, and then sometimes you get into these positions where like there might be a whole row that you just can't get to unless you just run into one of them and just take the hit and then start firing. That's like the only way to get them all, right? Which is kind of the idea. But again, more than anything else, I really put that there for the sake of taking into account the fact that there aren't any enemies in here yet, and getting hit is going to become much more likely when they are.
Mhm.
And you know, having upgradable, more stuff to spend your ore on, right?
Sure.
Because I want people to be able to like really
Oof, oof.
dump
What an
that stuff into
assassination of
PJ1.
your own character there. So you have something to spend ore on. Like I was way more excited when we were talking about tactical possibilities for spending health. I don't know if you've ever played the game Nova Drift, but that's a game that has a very similar sort of like feel to this, or not feel, I should say. It is a very different genre, but it's another sort of like space bullet hell game. And in that game, you can upgrade your hull for the purpose of like upgrading as a like ramming ship, and that game will feel very differently if you're good at ramming versus if you're not. But
Well,
what I'm curious about is like I guess like the vision that you have for upgrades and also the vision that you have for different scenarios. Because what I'm wondering is like would there be like a scenario where I might want to have like a very tough ship versus a scenario where I might not care about that as much? And I want to know what you think about that.
yeah, I think it has to do with like preference, people's preference, their play style. Like, do they want like a ship covered in ablative armor that like actually does AOE damage when you ram stuff, but like, you know, you're getting closer to dying every time you do that? Do they like that idea? Fine, you can do that. You know, that's the kind of stuff that's going through my head. Like, do you want just like a bruiser rig that just runs through stuff like it's nothing, you know?
Well,
Or do you want to play super tactily, like, oh, I'm going to move as little as possible, and I'm going to leverage the relationships between these different tactical options to just mess everything up and, like, be a ghost. You know what I mean? Like, almost stealth.
You're describing what you think you think you're describing different play styles, but I think you're actually describing different games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
maybe.
I guess because like, you know, like my bias is that I want this game to be a puzzler, and so but I was like, well, I guess if you're in a jam and you can get out of the jam in 3 different ways, that's interesting. But then what is the default state of the game? Like I think, like you say, it's a shoot 'em up that's turn based, but why is it turn based if I'm making all of these sort of like situation, like if I have all the time in the world to decide what to do next, why do I have so many options?
I don't know.
I definitely think that one like recipe for this game that makes sense to me would be exactly what Mark is talking about. Like if you run into something, you die. And then in that game where you have a lot of time to think and you like run into something, you die. I feel like you might as well include an undo button so that you can like go back, take a few steps back and see if you can puzzle your way through this level as opposed to playing through it. But what I'm also seeing in this game are some elements of randomness. So, for example, you're like serving these chunks. I don't know if you do it in a random fashion, and you're also talking about different builds. And to me, what that sounds like, and obviously this is me projecting a game that I've worked on onto this, but like what this sounds like to me is that there is some amount of that you're considering making this have like some amount of like roguelike feel where like different runs will feel very different. In which case I could totally see the value of having like one time I get offered like juggernaut upgrades, so I'm gonna build that way, and another run I'm offered like a more like glass cannon build, so I'm gonna build that way. And why I'm sort of hearing is that there's 2 things that both seem like viable game recipes to me, but I sort of feel like right now they're kind of blended together in a way that may not make 100% sense. I'm curious what you think about that.
I think I've always thought about this idea as almost like a light RPG, which is probably why I built it that way.
Gotcha.
I didn't actually think through. I mean, I know last time we even play tested this, it was like, oh, is this a turn-based shmup or is it just a puzzle game with a shmup skin on it, right? Which it basically is. But I think in the back of my head it was always a little RPG-ish, and that's why I wanted to have like these different options of like how someone wants to play this. Like if they don't want to have to deal with like, you know, the mental overhead of like, okay, I got to figure out these tactical options or whatever. Wanted to make it easy for the way they thought they should be playing it. Fine, you can. Do you know what I mean? But
yeah,
at the same-
I shouldn't present those two as though those are the two like exclusive options. Like I could
Right.
definitely imagine this game having like a lot of levels that sort of like feel like they're more puzzly, but then maybe I don't know, like I could imagine there might be some like enemies or some level or something where there's just a boss that just completely fills the screen with
Mhm.
with lasers or what have you, and maybe there's a way to dodge through it perfectly, but you might also be like, okay, at this point going into this mission, I need to like upgrade my health, and that might be an interesting situation.
I
Yeah,
think the
and
different play
that's- I mean,
styles need to have different risks and rewards. So if like the tactical collision is useful when you're sort of running out of moves and you need to get from one side of the screen to the other because at the top of the screen there's something you really want that you're going to need 6 moves to get to, but it would only take you 4 moves if you collided through this one thing. That feels interesting to me, but but getting the ore from the thing I collided in feels like that I've cheated my way, or I've avoided a consequence of that choice. So I think that when you make those choices, if you want to be, if you do have, you have a lot of health and you want to like just plow through, that can help you maybe reach certain areas quicker, or it could have some advantage later on as you progress through a level, but it should cost you something, I think, and not just health, because I think that because that's the play style. It should make it harder to play differently.
But
Like
if
you know what I mean?
if you upgrade, if you like spend some resources upgrading your health in like a mech warrior game or something,
Yeah.
like
Your heat goes up, right? Like-
do you pay some cost later? Well, you do, but it's kind of like an opportunity cost, right? Because you didn't spend that like upgrading your missiles or what have you.
Yeah, that's the
Does that make
simplest
sense?
way to do what I'm thinking, I think. But I'm kind of
Okay.
I'm wanting a little bit more real time feedback. But I think that's because the upgrade systems are not in the game right now, so that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Right,
But I think just having things to spend upgrades on does make sense if that leads into play style. But right now it doesn't feel like the more I tactically collide into things, the less I can do it later. And like I have a limited amount of times I can play that way. But that doesn't feel enough like a trade-off, because I'm not disadvantaged to playing the other way, which is to sit for 5 minutes and really plan out my next 6 moves. You know what I mean? It just feels like if you don't want to do this, just do this instead. That doesn't feel like a playstyle choice so much.
Interesting.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, because it's kind of like it's a weird double-edged sword, right? Because on the one hand, it's sort of like, yeah, it really just has the same outcome. It doesn't really matter. It's just like it probably wouldn't even amount to playstyle. Honestly, it would just end up being like whatever a person learned how to do first,
Yeah.
and that they would just play it that way. Especially given that I'm planning on having other upgrade stuff drop in there. Like you might get like a crate that has like some armor in it, or a crate that recharges your shield or whatever.
Yeah.
They might just decide that, okay, all I'm going to do is like just go through this running into stuff until I get down to 1 health, and then hope that a armor crate spawns or whatever, and then pick that up and keep, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So like if they learn to play it that way, then they're probably just going to keep playing that way without realizing that like there's all these other ways to do it, when ultimately everybody who's playing it is just doing whatever the contract thing is. There's not like a right way to do it, but like, is that interesting though, or are they just going to be like, this is really boring because the game didn't show them that there are other ways to do it?
Yeah, you want
Well,
to.
I will say, like we are all of the age where we may have played like Super Mario RPG or like Final Fantasy VII or any of those RPGs. They offer a lot of choices in the way that you're going to build your character, and ultimately they don't really matter that much, and they're kind of personal preference, because the game is built to be sort of easy enough that you can beat it regardless of which path you took. And people love those. So I don't necessarily think that there's like a mistake in being made here if you're doing it like an RPG.
Am I wrong to feel like Into the Breach inspirations here then? Because like
so weirdly, you are wrong, but you're also spiritually not wrong.
Visually, I was thinking
Weirdly
about
wrong.
that.
Because
Yes.
I've like I keep meaning to play that game, and I just haven't played it because I love mechs and I love pixel art, obviously. But like,
You play it, steal some ideas, dude. It's so good.
If you have a Netflix account, it is now free on the Netflix
oh,
games.
that's right? But you have to
which
like
is-
remember your password or something.
Yeah.
Oh, that's never gonna happen. Oh man.
I
I
feel
did,
that if you're installed on your device, it works.
I read an article
Okay, yeah.
recently about how Netflix has this huge library of games now, but nobody is using it because it's such a weird idea that people like read about it and they're like, "Oh, that sounds cool. I'll get around to that," and no one ever does.
Weird. It is super weird.
I have some questions about, like, not necessarily like bad things, just interesting design points that I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, bad things are good too, though.
Just in general, I feel like none of these are particularly wrong. They're just, I feel like these were interesting points that you must have thought about or had to have thought about to make it work. I find it interesting that your bullets move with you. So on the turn you move, they move 2 instead of 1. Was that always like that?
They move 1. What's happening is and you may have noticed this with other interactions too. When interactions take place on what would normally be the 0 count, some weird stuff happens. So like if there's a mine that's 2 spaces away from you and you have a bullet in front of you, and then it's maybe firing the bullet's the last thing you do, it looks like that mine's not going to hit you because it's still 2 spaces away, but because it moves on the 0 turn, it's hitting that projectile right in front of you, but it doesn't look like it. So like actually if you just move left and kill that one little tiny asteroid there. So just go ahead and fire. Go ahead and fire.
Because like in this situation, you don't get hit.
Well,
if
you
I
won't
move,
because you have 2 energy left, right?
yeah. Oh,
So if
what?
you hit down, it's going to blow up that thing before it moves.
Yeah.
But
But
if you were to do that with 1 energy left, it would move at the same time the projectile's moving to that square that's right in front of you.
yeah.
And this is a problem with. This is Lane's fault, really, so you can blame him.
Yep.
This is a. No, I need to figure this out. There's got to be a way to figure it out. But part of the problem with my original build was that, like, as I think as Lane rightly pointed out, it felt kind of sticky because I forced the player to wait until a particular interaction was resolved before they could input another command.
Mm-hmm.
And so I changed it, and what's actually happening in the background now is like there's like a simulated invisible playfield that all the visible stuff is reacting to. So like when all that stuff moves, it's actually in the space ahead of it. So like all those rocks, as soon as they move, that little asteroid, all of its data and its positional information is actually in the space ahead of it. And then the little asteroid catches up because it has to in order to resolve those interactions first. Because if it doesn't, then everything breaks, right? It doesn't know where anything is. I mean, I could use physics stuff for that, but then it gets even weirder and worse. So that problem, that 0 energy turn, quote unquote, that should be happening, but you don't see because it's the playfield moving, and then your energy immediately ticks back up to 3 on the same frame, is a problem. And I'm not sure how to fix it.
I see.
I'm not sure if it is fixable.
I see where this disconnect is, because I said that the bullet moves 2, and you said it doesn't, and you are technically correct. It is moving 1 space forward, but the entire world is moving backwards. So from my perspective, it has moved 2.
Right. Yeah, it's almost like instead of someone getting a point for a thing, it's like they get a point and their opponent loses a point.
Yeah.
So like the net difference is 2, even though the value for each player is 1. But yes. So it actually makes that part of the interaction like very annoying and not really make sense. One of the ways I might be able to resolve that is just by the player only gets 1 energy and you spend it when you do something. You can move, you can shoot, or you can store it, and that's it. You don't get 3. Right? That which is another thing Lane suggested, which may fix the problem he created. Sorry. I'm gonna keep throwing you under the bus for that one.
We're very influential here at Twin Cities Playtest. We make all sorts of problems without even knowing about it.
I think one way to go about that is, like, if you want to make that consistent, where a bullet that is about to hit the mine blows, either always blows you up or always doesn't. I would side on always doesn't.
Yeah.
You can have like two phases, one where the bullets move and then one where the player moves.
Oh, that is what's happening. It's just happening in a single frame, but like
Yeah, I
everything
think
has a hierarchical rank of like when it actually gets to move. And so the projectiles, or sorry, pickups move first, and then I think it's projectiles, and then like mines and asteroids, and then.
There's a visual way around this to explain this to players, which is that you move. You have three pieces of energy, but you're actually doing four things. You're doing the three things that the player chose to do, and then the fourth thing you're doing is moving forward one. And so I mean, okay, a way to fix it that would be annoying would be you move left, right, shoot, and those are your three actions. But then on your fourth action, you have to move forward, right? Annoying, because that's annoying. But I think
I see what you're saying. Though, like you make them do it so they know what's happening.
Right. I'm not suggesting you do that, but what I'm saying is that right now, what happens is when you make your final action, when you make your third action, the fourth action happens immediately afterwards, like visually. I think I think just adding a little bit of a delay where it actually is on zero for half a second, and then the game makes the move for the player. Don't make them press an input, but have it take up the same amount of time that a player action would take. I think they'd communicate to players a little bit more, and then they would be able to see the sequence of events properly.
Well, the problem is that just takes us right back to where I was with the first iteration, where I'm putting an intentional delay in there, and it starts to feel sticky and weird, and like it's not responding.
A good. You can always
right
queue
now,
up an input.
yeah.
You take an input, save it, and then just play it immediately.
Oh no.
What happened?
Have I?
Oh no. Yeah, Zach said the thing.
What, the command pattern? So,
folks, we have two other games with us today. We are a little bit over time, and they have generously been waiting for the next game. So, folks, no, not your fault. Not your fault. It's my bad for letting us linger here. But this game has been absolutely fascinating. I think there is so much more to discuss. I can't wait to have it back. Now, here's the thing, though. Any final thoughts on this game? I'm not going to take us over to the next one immediately, but I will say the next two games are very interesting, so I do want to hop over.
I would like to compliment that it is kind of addictive. I feel like I was enjoying that whole time of just kind of cruising around. I feel like it's like once I kind of get it, like I definitely needed more like complexity to it, but like just moving around like feels good. Like the way that it all like moves, and like it's also predictable makes it really fun to just to move around and play in.
Yeah, that's been true since
for me too.
The earliest versions. Like when we had it on last time, same thing. You could just kind of it's a great idle game. Like it's engaging enough and it's satisfying enough. Every little move you make, you see the results of it. Like the core is so strong.
Yeah, and watch
how to make it work.
watching people play and being like, I know how I could have done better next time is extremely cool. Gorgeous thing that you've got here. I like to end on a cutting note here.
Oh god.
I want to see shorter levels. I want to see shorter levels.
Oh yeah. No, that's not cutting. That's easier than
right.
completely rebuilding the architecture for it, Lane.
Dude, like the thing is though, like what I saw this time compared to last time was somebody sort of like jumped in and got it right away. And I think that the timing and the controls were like very intuitive, and I think it's come a long way. So I can't wait to have it back on again. Now, speaking of short levels and actually like extremely interesting design decisions, let's get Toman in here. Toman, can you tell us about your game?
Yeah, so this was something I made for a school club. I'm a university student, and it was mostly meant to be kind of like an aesthetic exercise, because I was, doodling in a notebook, and I was like, okay, you know what? I actually want to see how some of these doodles would feel played out, and one of the big focuses was, getting to kind of mess around with some game feel stuff and with making all this 2D art by hand, pen and paper. Gameplay-wise, it's very simple. You walk around, you collect some stuff, you use that to make combat easier, and combat is all about just shooting some little guys in a circular arena. Yeah, that's the gist.
Now let's just watch here for a moment. Who is playing this? Is Zach hopping on again, or is somebody else doing it?
Zach is still connected, so it's his if he wants it.
I'm willing to let anybody else take the reins, but if nobody wants to, I'm happy to play.
Let's keep Zach on.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Because, I mean,
All right.
you're very good at stuff.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, good at video games.
And yeah, I can't help but notice Zach isn't making any progress here.
Oh yeah.
I was sure doing something by this point. Zach, what's up, buddy?
I'm hitting all the buttons.
Check it out.
Spacebar did something.
Spacebar did something? All right, good.
Now to really lay the foundation here, to lay the foundation, like an audience expectations. I think that an acknowledged thing about this game is that it could explain a bit more to the player. Am I right about that, Toman?
Oh, absolutely. There's some very user-unfriendly design in this game. Some of it intentional, some of it unintentional.
I definitely have no idea what's going on right now.
That seems.
Believe it or not, you can actually use your mouse at this point to like aim around if you want to.
Also, you
sort of not.
Oh,
real quick.
If you cannot, then we have encountered a bug that I have not seen before.
That could be Parsec.
Now, I will say my success rate on these challenges was higher when I wasn't using the mouse, so maybe that'll help. Maybe you have to click and hold or something?
No? Oh, you shouldn't have to.
Okay.
Do I have mouse control?
You do have mouse control, but I will say you're thrown into. I was testing this game a little earlier. It looks like it.
Yeah, I was wondering.
Yeah, it looks like it retained the save data.
Yes.
Because it started you a little early. So what I'm going to do is, Zach, if you do not move the mouse, so I can get control of it again, and I will take it away from you briefly, and let's.
Bye.
I'm going to do a very technical maneuver, which you can all not watch me do, where I go and find the save data and delete it.
It's an app data?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Oh, we tossed him in at a difficult challenge. Like he was on like level 3 or something, right, Mark?
No, it wasn't that. It was just late into the first level. I was just testing it out when I loaded it up earlier, and it just picked up where I left off. Now, what is the publisher folder I should be looking for?
It should be in Sun Sigil. That's the name I publish games under.
Sun Sigil, okay. All right. Getting rid of that folder. It's gone. We can now give control back to Zach, including mouse control. And as to why it wasn't working for that little shoot 'em up section, that might be a Parsec thing. I'm not entirely certain.
Oh, hey, we're at the beginning.
There we go.
All right. Zach is enjoying the animation system here. Pretty good. What engine is this in? I'm curious.
This is in Unity, and I would just like to. Just to be clear, all the animation stuff, none of it actually uses the Unity animator.
Whoa, it's all code?
It's just a lot. It's a lot of LERPs in a trench coat. That's
sick.
And also non-linear interpolation.
So the text on here is
Do
pretty
you use
small
a lot
for
of animation curves?
No, it's really just a lot of functions, like as in algebraic functions, like.
Wow, next level. Very cool. Very cool.
I'm going to read off these banners because they're a little small, I think, for viewers. Cards arranged in card dungeons. Ingredients are brewed into essences at brewing stations. Dungeons, shrines, and essence drinkers yield runes. So I will say, I've now read this twice, and I don't know what to take from it.
All jargon, yeah. I can't explain if you'd like, but...
What this tells me as a player is that I'm not supposed to understand what's going on. Which isn't necessarily a bad vibe to get if that's what you're going for.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Dude, yeah, like I played for like 30 minutes. And I like the whole thing. I was like, man, this is cool, and my brain is slowly piecing things together. My experience was only at the very end, once I'd gone through like 5 challenges, I was like, oh my god, this is getting so hard, and I'm clearly not keeping up with it. So I have to know more. And at that point, I was like, I don't have the tools to like understand what I need to understand.
Yeah, so there's some really there's some tricky. Okay, how do I put this? So this game, originally there were quite a few combat abilities. You can only actually end up accessing one in this game unless you use console commands. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, they were supposed to make combat a lot easier. But to release this game, I had to basically like squish down a lot of content into one level because I just didn't want to make like a huge long world. I wanted to get the game out like ASAP. And so yeah, a lot of the stuff ended up getting cut. And that means that the challenges, yeah, especially near the end, the difficulty, it gets steep. And the other thing is, so I'm not very good at this game myself, but my friends who, I got to play test it with, they were way better at it than me. So this is essentially tuned to their skill level because I don't have a very wide play testing pool. So yeah, I'm glad someone else finds it hard and it's not just me. Put it that way.
I mean, one thing that I thought was really cool is now I am not big time by any means, but I have like published like a shoot 'em up that I worked on for like several years,
Yeah.
and I thought that like just the absolute distilled essence of like what the major enemy types are in shmups was extremely well done here. I really liked the 3 enemy types that you chose here, and I thought that they made really interesting scenarios, even though every arena is basically the same. I had no abilities that I could figure out, and like the mechanics were like, at least in terms of what I could figure out what I could do, were like very simple. But like, yeah, I like it was great. I had a wonderful time. But as I said, like I only got, I don't know, maybe like I'm gonna guess and say like 2/3 of the way through, and I just like hit a brick wall.
Oh, is there sound coming through for anyone? Because I will say there is sound in the game, but
I had to mute it because
okay.
of the echo.
Yeah.
There is sound.
Oh yeah, so you can't hear it if you're looking at the Discord stream, but everybody else is hearing it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So I'm not getting your pretty sound design. I apologize.
This thing that's on the screen right now, I will say this, like, you're already holding Bobble. I mean, I'm just gonna say it just to claim this, but like it's obvious to everybody, it's the worst thing in the world. Like there could be people like starving right now. This is significantly worse than that. It's so bad. Like, why do you have to waste my time because I'm trying to pick something up?
Yeah. No, that's definitely. I agree. It's one of the worst design decisions.
Yeah, I feel like, I cannot rotate with the mouse. I don't know if that's a parsec thing or.
I think that you're fine. I think it's not necessary to do well in combat here.
Okay, I can.
And by well, I mean slightly worse than Toman's friends.
Yeah. So that I definitely rotate a lot during combat, but also like, so I'm a little bit bummed that it's not. Also, a lot of the abilities rely on you being able to aim with the mouse, so I'm bummed
really?
that this bug is appearing.
Could you explain the abilities? Because I feel like that's one of the. Oh shoot! He just did something.
And now he's pointing.
It did rotate me. That's neat.
Did someone press E? Okay, yeah, someone pressed E. So that's those runes when you collect them.
Yeah.
You'll notice now, like you can see a red rune instead of all just black ones up in that bar at the top, and then you open up the menu, that tab menu. It'll show you that you have that rune unlocked as well. And each of those is a different combat ability. And again, unless you use console commands, only one is accessible right now. But yeah, that one is like, I just call it the slingshot, I guess. It creates that path. You become invulnerable for a while, and you just sweep across and basically put all enemies into a destructible, I should say.
Cool.
But yeah, it does usually rely on aim.
I can aim it. I can aim like the ability. I can't aim myself. It follows my mouse. I don't know what that is.
Okay, so yeah, the bug is then definitely, it's absolutely on my end. Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, all good. I got it. I figured it out.
I think. Let me ask you, why is the arena so small on screen?
Right. So I think I said at the beginning this game was mostly meant to be an aesthetic exercise, and part of that was I really like in-world UI stuff.
Yeah.
And so
Nice.
I just knew I was gonna get bummed out if the arenas kind of like expanded to cover the entire screen. You could no longer see the world in the background. So they could definitely be. I could have made them 50% bigger, and they
Yeah,
still would have
yeah.
had that same effect.
Even that sort of sun ray outline, you wouldn't even have to lose any of that. You just make it big enough where you still have nice little bezels on the top and bottom. But yeah, you could 20 to 50% bigger. Would be just a little bit more legible.
Yeah. So this one destroys me too.
Oh, it is hard. Yep.
It is interesting. I think this is a little bug when you use the rune ability. Sometimes on the edge, it doesn't actually move you.
Yes, that I have been trying to. That one has
Yeah, right there.
been me for a long time.
I was also able to hide from the enemy attacks.
No way.
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
Um,
One thing I'll say is like you have to click in order to shoot. Is that right?
Spacebar.
Spacebar, yeah.
Spacebar. What am I? Oh, that's right. That's right.
Space
Okay.
is one of the do something buttons, yeah.
Right. Okay. I was gonna say like I think that like okay. Now I have to say like on the one hand, the like aesthetics I very much respect, and if you're trying to like hurt people, then like wow, you're doing great here, because I think that like hammering the spacebar with your left hand. Now maybe I'm dumb. Maybe I'm supposed to hit it with my right hand and then careen back to the mouse real quick and then hit with the spacebar with my right hand. But like what I found was pressing a spacebar with my left hand significantly lowered my ability to control my position using WASD, because like I'm rocking my hand constantly. And maybe it's because I am like 10 years older than you, but like I also found that this was like surprisingly uncomfortable to be piloting around with WASD and also like hammering the spacebar. I wished I could have like pressed it in order to keep shooting, or held down mouse 1 to keep shooting.
So there's a lot of there's some legacy stuff from like mechanics that don't actually exist anymore in this game that I think are hurting the current version. So do you remember the main menu? So that kind of you sort of load up that bar and then slingshot towards where it lands to unlock the main menu. Yeah, so that's originally combat was much slower paced in this game, and it all actually operated using that same kind of like that slingshot-esque mechanic. And so you weren't hammering space, you would basically aim with the mouse, charge up to launch yourself, and then destroy things in your path as you launched. But it just got really boring to do that, so I changed to more traditional shoot 'em up stuff. But I kept the control scheme. So yeah, that's it. Thank you for pointing that out. That is not good feeling wise.
As far as I can tell, that is like one of the simplest changes, because like I was definitely like enjoying the game, like personally, like as somebody who's played like a fair number of this type of game, I was enjoying the game well enough to like play through to the end. Even when I hit the like alleged difficulty brick wall, I would have continued to try, except for I was actually getting like physically uncomfortable playing because of that issue. So I think that's like the easiest win that you could have here.
Is this the brick wall?
I think that I had a little bit of self-respect and actually got through. Well, I think it was the next one.
Yeah, I can get through. I think this one sometimes, and then the next one just.
Well, I had the ability to like tilt, Zach. So this is not on you.
Yeah, I feel like just because your attack is also your defense, like.
Yes.
But also I have these guys chasing me, so to avoid the guys I have to go around. But to go around, I can no longer shoot the guys. So like definitely designed as intended of being able to control the game. Was
the guys
a good choice.
That follow.
The
guys that follow you, I definitely, when I am playing this, I always need to kind of like kite around them and hit them from behind in order to kill them.
Is it possible to play this with a like an Xbox controller or something?
I was gonna say
not,
because I
don't think so.
It's gonna feel so much better.
Yeah, Lane, I don't know how you feel with other shoot 'em ups, but I feel like I can't play shoot 'em ups with a keyboard and mouse. Like it doesn't work for me. But I am pretty
All
good
right.
at it with a controller, and I think that if you want to support multiple inputs, you're gonna have to decide like what's the prime input, because it's gonna really change the difficulty for some people.
Yeah. Okay. That's a
Yeah,
good.
I've said it
that's a good
before.
point.
I've said it again. WASD is not great. I guess what my like takeaway is that mouse is the best for offense and analog stick is the best for defense. If you want to get high scores on any twin stick shooter, you do left hand on the Xbox controller, right hand on the mouse. But like in this game, like I think that the ideal input would be like analog sticks, because it just makes like dodging around these things so much easier.
One of the I think one of the frustrating things I'm seeing here with the combat is how far the exploders start spawning. Where it's not even touching them. So I've definitely been what I felt like was a safe distance and had one spawn inside of me, and that kind of hurts as a player.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that feels like it breaks the contract the shoot 'em up player has with the level, right?
Good. Exactly. Yes.
Just trying to dodge here is rough. This is I feel the wall.
I will say, compared to other types of shoot 'em ups, I do like the fact that you have these enemies that appear on screen but are disabled, and then they become enabled as you progress through it.
It's so cool.
That is a really. I mean, we've been giving you lots of crap for various things in these, but I think for something that is, as you describe, a traditional shoot 'em up, I think that is pretty unique and interesting.
Yeah. I did want there to be some sense of waves, but I didn't want to do it. The last time I made a game like this, I had waves, but I had it actually just they would just basically, I would spawn them outside of the visible region of the screen and then have them slowly come in, and it was still even with that kind of that introduction for another wave of enemies, I think it was still a little bit disorienting. So I just wanted to have them all visible in one place here.
So, and with your 1-bit aesthetic, with no, you don't have any shading, it still seems fairly legible. It's readable with that sort of that hatch pattern. It's great.
Yeah, that is the one thing that is not all done by hand. That's just a dither shader I wrote. Because I like pointillism, but not enough to redo all my tree assets and enemy assets in pointillism by hand.
It is gorgeous.
Oh yeah.
It's definitely striking just joining in. And even with the UI size, I feel everything is very visible. Because of how black and white everything is.
Yeah.
And
I don't love that the bullets are square, rotating, and have a dot in the center. That feels a little busy to me, but I feel like it's. I think it's fair. Do you know what I mean? I don't love it, but I think that's just a matter of taste. I don't think it's wrong. I think it just makes it sort of frustrating and a little difficult. But I think that's okay.
His alternative would be, I think, to have them be circles, but they have to be busy enough while they're moving around, and that's kind of essential. They would have to be circles that would be sort of pulsing in and out as they move, as opposed to spinning squares.
Yeah. Well, the spinning adds a visual component that is just like a color would, so that gives it some some legibility that's nice. They basically are circles because they're spinning. And they spin fast enough, but I don't know how you do the colliders on them. If it's square colliders.
Oh, they've got to be circled,
precise.
Right? Yeah, it's a circular collider.
Okay.
Oh, thank goodness.
Is it inclusive of the whole sprite, or is it a little smaller?
No, it's smaller. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not trying to get anyone clipped by the invisible air around the bullet. That's a little too mean, even for me.
Mm-hmm.
What is this supposed to?
You got to figure it out, dog.
So I have a narrative question.
Let's go.
So for you're obviously you have some kind of headcanon about what's going on. How did you decide what to tell the player, and did you actually come up with the full story and then cut out bits not to tell the player, or did you just kind of come up with like some highlights and then let everybody else fill in their own piece?
So, unfortunately, there is supposed to be some more information. I think if you were to talk to the NPCs, I think they should give you some hints as to what the card game does, especially like the priest guy by the church. But yeah, a lot of stuff ended up getting cut out just to keep to keep the level short. And I had to kind of stuff in these banners to like tell people more concrete information about the game. But then people, I think, pay a little bit less attention to the NPC stuff. The information basically by release, it had all gotten like jumbled up. I had gotten bad at choosing what to cut and what to keep. It's just kind of a mess at this point.
So why did you decide not to tell the player what the mechanics are or what the cards do?
So initially, I wanted this to be a kind of game where people just like mess around until they figure stuff out, until things fall into place for them. And that's why like the card mechanic. So if you get enough information from the NPCs as it was originally, the card mechanic itself, like the swapping around, that becomes quite, that's pretty self-explanatory, I think. Of course, what order you're actually trying to swap them into is the tricky part. Yeah, that's I think where things fall apart the most.
Well,
Yeah.
actually, it looks like you've got a good balance. There was a game a number of years ago. Starseed Pilgrim. You ever play that game?
Yeah.
Yes.
I found it unpenetrable. I couldn't understand anything that was happening in that game. I did not like it at all. I kind of get the gist of what's going on here. It's introducing like well-known, kind of archetypal mechanics without an explanation, with some kind of, twisting those mechanics on top of it that you have to figure out yourself. That game, personally, I found just completely foreign.
Yeah. I definitely like I knew that I was going to be kind of like violating like a lot of the visual language of games, also like a lot of the rules about like tutorial introduction, the order in which you introduce things. I mean, like as you guys saw, like I don't even tell you how to open the menu, right? It's pretty bad. So I knew that like with that in mind, I was going to have to keep the mechanics like very, very orthodox.
I think that was a good call, and it must have saved you a bundle on localization, because the narrative don't matter and there's no tutorial. You're just going visually, so it's good.
What is going on there with the ingredient menu? There's some really funky.
Oh. I definitely picked up more of something that I shouldn't have. You should have popped up that menu saying I already had it in my hand. But
Yes,
got
you
to pick
should.
up more.
You got more. Whoa! It's still stacking.
You should not be able to. Okay, that should be like a very deep, like ingrained in the system kind of thing that should never be able to happen. That's true. Thank you for finding that.
There's got to be a way to like pop up like a little toast message without like stopping the game for 1.5 seconds here.
Oh yeah.
And then if you double tap F at the wrong time, it reopens the menu.
Does it?
Honestly, what you should have is as you pass by it, the little floating F that goes by. Instead of a floating F, it should be like an F with a cross through it, or maybe a tiny little thing that does say you already have this or something. So the player gets the information they need without having to press a button as they walk by.
Yeah.
Just a couple bits of art feedback, because I think you have I think my guess is that everyone's reaction is positive because of how great it all looks. But there's a couple of little things that caught me. One is when you walk back and forth, you flip the character sprite, but that also flips the order and the orientation of your inventory that's always hanging above your head. That's a little confusing because isn't that because especially because with the cards being there's a I don't know the mechanic quite yet, but the order is important. Having that flip and then the order flip, it tells me there's something important about that, and I doubt there really is. So that's just one thing. If you just flip the Y on there, just flip the Y of the inventory container as well, so it flips back. The other thing is, I would say you've put a lot of work into all this hand-drawn art, but I would say let's get a hand-drawn font in there. I think that would. I look at that Times New Roman in red when you talk to characters, and it's not. It's fine, but I would love to see a hand-drawn font there. I think for the menus and the little banners that go by, that have a kind of like a kind of a Nordic, a Norse runic look. That's probably I think that works. But I would like to see a hand-drawn font for the at least for that. But that's asking you to do a lot of work, so feel free to not do that.
No, I mean, I considered it, but again, it did come down to like I'm two things. One, it's a lot of work, and two, I do think you have to have like a solid knowledge of kerning and whatnot to make to really pull off a good font. And I'm not a typeface designer, so I was like, let's get that for now.
The reason
you got to be able to find one though.
I will say
you wrote your own stipple shader.
You could find one. But looking at it, you're also going to want something that doesn't that does a point scaling, right? Because you don't want because everything is all the things are so sharp. I think that you can get away without a lot of fancy kerning or ligature pairs or anything fancy like that. I'm just thinking about the style that you've drawn the runes that are, the power runes, and like that aesthetic, a little sloppy, but sort of neat and uniform in a way, while being very kind of carved into a wall is kind of the aesthetic that I think you've got with a lot of what's going here.
I'm glad that's coming through. Yeah.
Yeah, and the related to that, my last piece of little art feedback is you do a pretty good job. Like games historically, just generally, are terrible at this, and you've done a pretty good job of making the different scale of your drawings fit together. That's something that anything with hand-drawn art, you always find, this is scaled up by 120%, and this is scaled down to 70%, even though they were drawn at the same size, and you can tell. And that is happening here, but it all works. Like, I think you've done a really good job of the different line thicknesses all match up. I think, and that is something that I don't know how much deliberate effort you put into that, but it's so easy to break the hand-drawn feel of a game. And I think you've avoided that, thankfully. But this is related to the font, is that the font is very light, or at least the serif font that the characters are speaking in. And so I think that's part of it, is that that does feel separate from the world. So if it's not a hand-drawn font to replace it to, something else that feels a little bit more to scale in that moment in terms of the stroke thickness, I think would be nice. But related to that, and the reason I babble on so long about it so far, is that the one piece when you that little selector icon when you select a card to change the order, that little stamp, that little red stamp, that is the one place where I feel like I can just tell that is a drawing that's scaled down.
Yeah, so that was, I did not, with a lot of this stuff, I actually drew it all on these really big sheets of Bristol paper, because I wanted basically to avoid too much clashing with line thicknesses. Obviously, as you know, there are exceptions, like the arenas, they get scaled before your very eyes. You're always going to be able to tell what's going on. But the environment pieces, they were actually often drawn next to each other just to make sure that they were all kind of drawn to scale. But then that little stamp, I didn't I added that card mechanic pretty late into development.
Sure.
And I was just like, you know what? I'm not gonna draw a little selector stamp on its own. I just grabbed a different piece of art, scaled it down, slapped it on there. So it really is just something else that was scaled down.
Yeah. The arena here, you can tell that it's scaled up, but my eyes read it as just a thicker pen. You know what I mean? And part of that is because you have this point scaled, there's no attempt to alias. There's no attempt to alias it to fit. So that really works for me. That was the one case where it makes sense that was just something you just threw together there, because you can tell how deliberate it all is, and I think it's a huge win. And I think people who don't know what I'm talking about don't appreciate how hard it is to do that right. And I think you've done a really great job with it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Looking at it now, just the runes on the upper right of the arena there, you've got the E at the upper left and Q at the lower right. It took me a while to realize that was a Q.
Oh, yeah. Well, does it look like an O?
Well, it looks like a cell phone, actually.
Yeah, it's pretty grainy on my screen too right now, and it's true.
The stroke on the Q looks like a home button. So yeah, it's just it's because it's lacking context of the rest of the alphabet.
Yeah.
I beat the last one, but this third one,
Yeah, this is where I had trouble.
Yeah.
I love being able to like waken up the enemies. I felt like what that did was it gave me a huge amount of like strategic depth. That, I mean, like for as simple as the combat is, it like the choice of like which type of enemy do I feel best equipped to like fight was excellent. It was like the only choice that I really needed.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was able to turn my character. So if Zach can beat this, he is truly the master gamer.
Are the deactivated guys supposed to be like blocking shots?
Oh
Oh
Christ. No. I don't think I turn off their collision when they're in that state. Oh my god.
I don't mind it so much. I mean, it's annoying.
Make
it easier, I guess, but like I don't mind it.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel wrong. It just does make it harder though.
I would agree with that. It doesn't feel wrong. It's just harder.
But they should block the enemy shots too if they're there.
That's perhaps.
Yeah, they don't register the kind of like combat system doesn't even register hits from like similar factions. So,
oh yeah, makes sense.
Okay. Oh man.
I believe in you, Zach.
Yeah, like currently my biggest issue is like, especially on like this map where you start out with so many of those exploders right next to you, is like I take damage immediately when they spawn. Like they spawn and I've taken damage, and like
just move right immediately.
There's like no place that couldn't spawn one of the exploders though.
Move up, dog.
Maybe if I move on top of one of them.
No, just moving in the middle. There's nobody there. It's empty. Jeez.
It actually, seeing Zach play the same level over and over again, it actually is interesting to see how different the first second is. Every playthrough, that it's sort of non-deterministic in a way that I think is a little frustrating.
I think, like, as far as difficulty scaling down, like that's definitely, I think it would make it easier, but not in a way that's more satisfying, because you could definitely go to the first one that spawns, that's the annoying one, while it is like loading up and like put 2 shots into it. If you knew which ones were going to be there.
And this would be fine. It would make the earlier, like, it would make all the levels a little easier, and so the overall difficulty could scale up. Would you think that if you could like, if you were producing this game, the next thing that you would do, the next thing I would do anyway, would be to make the enemies look different from each other, make the 3 different enemy types different, and then give like 1 second as they wake up at the beginning, and just like sort of like wiggle the ones that are like waking up, so that you can like plan a little bit.
Yeah, because you get that moment when the level starts. You just get a quick second to plan your. I don't think it gets you much, but at least it's a little moment. But as each enemy wakes up, a little bit of a tell would help there.
It'll be so nice.
Yeah, because the things change so quickly that sometimes it doesn't feel like it's that fair.
Well, because you could choose, like, I'm going to run down. But if the one that is down from you ends up being one of the Splody boys, like it is, pretty yikes, as they say. I just can't believe all these animations were done using code. It's pretty cool. Yeah. If you haven't used the, like...
animator.
Oh, yeah.
So it's all got to be math for me.
Lane, I don't know how much experience you have with the Unity editor, but or the Unity animator, but the animations that are in this game would be probably a lot more fiddly to set up with that keyframe system. Like it's a great tool, but it is way too much. It's too much engine for a lot of, to use a car metaphor, for a lot of things you really want to do.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I had made a 2D game a while ago, also in Unity, that it did. It was a big group thing, and so we had all sorts of different artists, and their style is not my style. So rather than we couldn't do mathematically driven animations for that game.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of like me and the other programmers messing around with the Unity animator, trying to get it to play nice, and yeah, I didn't have a great time. So
Oh, okay. Like the thing where I think the Unity animator could be good, is at the when now I know that this is kind of a legendary thing that doesn't happen very often, but when somebody completes a challenge. I know. Calm down, I promise it happens sometimes. Like when that happens, you have a sequence of things that looks fantastic, and I think it would be easier to sequence if you had used the Unity like animator. But
Yeah.
I totally agree. I totally dig what Mark is saying. Like the sun expanding and like the rings expanding out. All that stuff makes sense to do in code. But like it's that sequences that I think you have a little bit easier time if you have a timeline you can scrub through.
Yeah, Lane, I think you're dead on
so
that.
that's-
Yeah.
I actually I wrote. So that is all done via state machines, just
Zach
not
is so
the
close.
Unity animator state machines.
Yep.
I just can't blast through this guy, and
That's-
I guess I could kite sideways and then.
Oh no! Oh, you just no. You can shoot faster than he can. Just stay. Just
You know,
Oh!
That's
No.
that's an interesting shoot 'em up thing. Like, how often do your bullets, one, destroy enemy bullets, or two, not pass through enemy bullets? That's not common to the genre, right?
That's correct. Yep. Usually you shoot through enemy bullets.
Yeah.
But
So-
I
go
mean,
ahead.
yeah. Go ahead, please.
Oh, I was just gonna say, this is so I'm not a big like shoot 'em up guy. The reason why I said first, I was trying to do some very orthodox mechanics, and that to me is like it's like a classic. Everyone knows kind of how it goes at a basic level. I really liked the hacking sections in Nier Automata. And I was like, okay, that will be my template for shoot 'em up combat. And that destruction of projectiles, unless I'm just imagining this, I think that is in there, and I honestly think that's why I made that decision.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. Okay, so I'm very unclear as to when I can use my ability. I know that there's this thing slowly turning red, but I just used it twice in a row. Or is that a redirect? Is that part of the ability?
That is a bug.
You know,
So that's not a.
that recharge is the way you indicate that by slowly becoming red. That violates a little bit of your style rules, right? Because you have black, white, and red are your colors, but that fade, I think you might do better, and it might be more visually legible to players to have like a little spinning clock wheel or something around, because you already got the circle there to indicate
that's
its
true.
charge, and then it snaps to red when it's available.
You got to snap.
Because that slow fade, there's nothing that ever at any point in that animation draws the attention of the player. It happens without them noticing it.
Yeah. I'm glad you noticed that the fade breaks the rules, basically, because that was the one thing that was going through my mind when I was doing that. I was like, oh no, like there's gonna be like, it's not going to be a pure tricolor game. Like there are going to be colors in between that the player sees, and I was feeling kind of weird about that. So I'm almost like, I'm glad the rest of the game is consistent enough that people actually notice when that rule gets broken.
Well, I have been quietly seething over here because one thing that Mark called me out in my game that he hasn't mentioned in your game yet is these ripple rings, these red ones. Excuse me, does anybody else see that they sort of fade out in the last couple of frames?
Yeah, they should maybe. Well, I mean, they're definitely not hand drawn, and I don't mind.
Well,
I don't mind it.
Ideally,
That's all fair, yeah.
what you'd want to do is you'd want to thin the rings out
I
at
think
the
so.
end, but that's significantly harder to do.
Actually, what you want to do is you want to hand draw 4 circles, and then flipbook animate between them, each thinner lines.
So true.
And then you can still scale it up, but as you scale it up, snap 4, 3, 2, 1, disappear. That'll
so
match
they
the
would kind of like
aesthetic.
boil. Yeah.
It'll sizzle a little bit, this sort of Dr. Cat style, which
Yeah.
will just be fun.
Yeah.
I don't know how hard this would be, but didn't you write the shader for the background stuff?
Yes.
So could you like do a dither shader on them instead of having them fade or something?
Yeah, I could stipple things in and
Yeah.
out like that
Yeah,
instead
that
of
would be cool,
transparency.
too.
That would.
Mhm.
I
Yes.
think that would be cool too.
One thing about those rip. Oh, Zach just did something new.
Ooh.
So
this
he
is
shot a little arc. It's great.
It's really hard to pull this off just because, like every time I load in, my abilities reset, and so like there's with how fast these levels start, like I have to really quickly switch to this. But which
Yeah,
with all the buttons I have to press to dodge makes that really.
Yeah, dithering out those rings would be like pretty sick.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Those rings are like the thinning stuff is also not hard to do. They're like stupidly customizable for no reason, considering I don't actually use a lot of the customization stuff I wrote for them. So it wouldn't be that bad to work all that in.
I don't know if you're using this library, but I will just use this opportunity to plug Freya Holmer's shapes asset on the asset store. It's just a great vector drawing library that
Couldn't agree more.
I don't know. I don't know that you need it really badly here because your aesthetic, it doesn't really call for it so much. But just generally, most projects will find a use for it for UI or gameplay or anything. It's really, really good. It's something Unity should have built in.
I'm not using shapes, but I'm such a Freya Holmer fan. Like,
Yeah.
all her stuff is so cool. And that I remember that Bezier curve video of hers, which like I think everyone, it's probably her #1 most viewed video. That had me like opening up processing and writing like a Bezier curve generator for no reason right after, because I was like, oh, this is so cool. I got to do something with this.
I know it's not relevant, but those like little missiles in my game, I wrote those Beziers based off of that video.
Oh, nice.
Like,
it's so good.
Amazing. Yeah, it's awesome.
She is the only reason I understand anything about shaders.
That too, actually, yeah. Before the math stuff, I watched like a lot of her like shader like tutorials and stuff because I kind of had no idea what was going on.
Yeah. What's great about the videos she does is she actually produces those in Unity using her own library to draw that stuff instead of After Effects or anything else that you might normally use for video production.
Yeah.
It's definitely a eating your own dog food kind of situation.
That's crazy. I didn't know that she did that. Nuts.
I do use Unity for non-game stuff sometimes for just like if I need like some kind of a prototype of something interactive, I just go against the most comfortable option at this point.
Yeah.
If your life is feeling too stress-free and you need something to shake things up, you just pop open Unity.
That's the other. There's a lot of avoidance of Unity in this game, despite being like I have like a bunch of like state machine and timeline stuff. There's actually there's basically keyframe animation in this game, but it's just all like stuff I wrote myself because I was so bitter about using Unity's tools.
What just happened to those little rings? What?
The bee ability does something, and I have no idea what it is.
You gotta experiment with that bee, bud.
That is.
Oh, what?
That is theoretically a shield, but it looks it's so broken. It's like unbelievably broken. That's what if you can't tell, the abilities are definitely the least play-tested part of this game, and it may have something to do with all of the challenges being way too hard for people to unlock rooms.
I mean, that arc looks pretty sick, though. You delete a ton of bullets with that thing. I don't know what Zach is doing messing around with this, like, lance business.
It's so hard to switch to it.
I mean, part of this is because Zach does not have mouse controls, so that definitely changes things. Lane was saying he preferred to play without mouse controls, so there's that, I guess. But I think because I don't know, I feel like I don't see that I mean, Zach, you can tell me otherwise, but I don't know that the existence of the abilities is that important to the gameplay. At least having up to 4 different things you could do. That seems like you don't really need that, right?
I think not. Yeah, switching the mid combat doesn't seem like it is ever helpful. Like I can't imagine with these combats that I've seen that I would ever want to use multiple abilities, especially with the charge time between them.
Yeah.
Is it shared between them, or do they have independent charge times?
I think they're independent.
They
To be independent, yeah.
Yeah, so that would be the reason, right? So you could use more abilities.
if that is how that's supposed to work.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell because you can cast abilities within the window multiple times.
I mean,
So-
my take on this would be if the abilities were real easy to use, such that you could like take advantage of that, where like you pressed 1 and it did the first ability, you pressed 2 and it executed the second ability, then it would make a lot of sense to be able to like stack multiple abilities, because then you'd be easy to use them. Oh man, Zach is in this spot again.
Please.
I swear Zach knows how to play video games. He's not always.
No, this is not his fault.
We're all like
Take it
really
from
rooting
me,
for you,
that is
Zach. But
not-
you've only got about 4 or 5 minutes before we go to the next game.
yeah. I don't think I think did I miss something in the overworld that I could be showing off? I made.
I mean,
You can go
besides,
further, right? We can see what's over there.
oh, there's nothing. You guys have really. This level really is tiny. I'm almost glad that this like a brutally unfair like combat situation is happening, because it makes the game last a little longer than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Got so much. It's amazing.
Well,
go
ahead, Zach.
I do have to say it's really uncomfortable to have my controls shifted from piloting this to right when I die immediately going to walking.
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
And maybe it's because it happens so much. But
No, I remember that happening to me a lot when that happened. Just like, I guess I'm. Yeah, it's very weird.
Maybe you guys just need to get good.
yeah.
True. So true.
Well, as we give Zach just a few more minutes to get this through, let me interrogate you a little bit about the narrative, because I think, my criticism of it, I think so far, is that because so much time has been spent on these challenges, it does feel like a shoot 'em up with a little bit of other game wrapped around it.
Yes.
And obviously, when it's in early stages, the amount of each piece is not going to be final, obviously. So I'm not criticizing that as choices you made. But tell me a little bit about where the game is going. I'm just watching Zach. I'm trying to get that last one. What does the game going to feel like? I think when it's fully fleshed out, like how much time do you think player will spend on these mini games? Will be other types of mini games? How does that balance with the narrative, and how does the narrative? I'm asking you a million questions, but I'm just giving you an opportunity to kind of give you like a longer sort of pitch on the project. How does the narrative lean into them? What do you want? How do you want players to feel as they go through these things? That sort of stuff.
So first things first, this project, it may not get much more fleshed out than this. I'm going to try and integrate some of the feedback you've given me, but again, this was a club project, and
Sure.
I'm planning on moving on to the next club project. But the initial vision for the game, it did, it was supposed to have quite a bit more space to walk around. The challenges were supposed to be more spread out, and so the focus of the game was actually supposed to kind of be about looking at things and chatting with NPCs, and then once per region, and there would be 4 regions, there would be a combat challenge, and the challenge was basically just supposed to be like a little obstacle for you to get through, and you're supposed to have some kind of little moment of challenge and then reward before moving on to the next region. And these runes, these combat abilities, as you can see, you don't just get them you get these from the card mini games, and from collecting these ingredients and talking to the right people to get them to do something with the ingredients and give you a rune. It was supposed to be more like that, where you explore the area thoroughly, you find out what people have to say, you take a look at some art, you get an ability to make the next combat challenge easier, go through that, move on to the next stage, so on and so forth until you reach the end. Extremely linear, very simple, but it just got so compressed. So the combat in this, it's too close together. The abilities don't really feel spaced out. Like you go from having like none of them to having all of them. Initially, combat challenges, like they didn't give you runes, they didn't give you abilities. That was the other thing.
Sure.
I think it is important to know when to stop making a game.
Whoa, harsh critique from Zach incoming. Let's hear it.
Just in general, like I feel like there's definitely some games that didn't go anywhere that I knew weren't gonna go anywhere earlier on that I spent too much time working on just out of spite for wanting it to be the perfect product. That like when sometimes like it's good where it's at, and like it's good to move on to new projects having learned stuff.
Yeah, that was this game. Like, aesthetically, I got what I wanted out of it, but gameplay-wise, like the design of it just did not really work out for me. So that's what I've already like. I'm working on a new project right now. It may not go much farther than this, but I certainly want to fix some bugs and improve some UX stuff just because I can, based on the feedback you've given me.
Yeah, if ultimately it serves as a prototype for a future project that is wildly different, like that's a big success,
Yeah. That's what with all the stuff I do for school clubs, it's mostly just like, what can I make that will improve my skills, basically.
Yeah. Well, we're a minute past, half past 8, which I think is time. I'd say if we got any final thoughts, otherwise we can move on to the next one.
Absolutely. Let me summarize. Number one, this thing is on the screen right now. Absolutely the worst. Please, just normal toasts. Number two is let me hold down the space bar to shoot. Save my poor creaking arthritic joints. Number three, if you want people to use all the like abilities, making them so that you can use them very easily, like press 1 and then the first one just executes. That's gonna help a lot. And number 4 is if the enemies are extremely cool, they are very wisely selected. I like them a lot. I think that they should look differently, and then also there should be some sort of broadcast of which ones are about to wake up at the very beginning, so that you can use that first second to your advantage a little bit more.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I love the way it's going, and I think that those 4 things would make the game feel a lot better. I don't know if you want to do that because, like Zach said, perfectly valid to just say nope, it's done. But I think that those would make it a lot more accessible.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
As we're loading up the next game, and well, first of all, we want to give a short introduction. I would like to hear about where you're going to school in this club.
Oh, I go to University of Minnesota, and it is the University of Minnesota Game Development Club.
Nice.
That's fantastic. That was not there when I went there, and that is wonderful. Burn Depth is on the screen now. Let's go over to Luke. Luke, can you tell us a little bit about Burn Depth? Back when I was at University of Minnesota, they were busy lying about Alzheimer's disease. Luke, introduce us to your game, please.
All right.
Oh my god, sorry.
So I'm not quite sure how to follow that one. So I will say, I do have a confession to make to Lane.
I hope it's that you're always lying about Alzheimer's.
They're always
Well, I
doing
can't
that.
remember. So,
Good one.
well, I will say, remember, I really hope this runs okay. This is it's not well optimized, and it doesn't look great just from the menu.
Yeah, I will tell you, this machine we're running on is a 48-core server-class workstation with an RTX 3090. So I was quite shocked. But I think you will find that if it's choking my machine, then whatever optimizations you put in will no doubt there's just one thing that's destroying it that you could probably fix very easily.
I've got a 4-year-old PC 2070. It ran okay. It ran 60 frames on my PC.
So
might be the latency. Might be the latency on the stream.
No. My experience with it. It might also be the screen resolution or something. But I had when I was testing it earlier, I was getting some hiccups and a crash or two. But we'll see if we can avoid that, or we'll just power through it because that's what we do here at Playtest.
Oh my goodness, I haven't seen a crash yet. So let's see. Anyway, so back to the confession. So this game was not in a playable state 36 hours ago.
Oh my. But it had a Steam page. I was so convinced.
Well, the Steam page comes early. You got to start marketing sometime. So thanks to Lane, I had to do a 36-hour crunch to get this into play, a way where I could hit the actual build button and give somebody for it to play it for a few minutes. So you're going to notice that many systems are not there. Enemies are not going to attack you because they don't have those animations and those state machine. It's not programmed yet. Their AI isn't there yet. Really, you should judge this based upon that I was building the atmosphere and the graphics first. That was the first thing I built because I wanted to make sure that that feel was good. I knew I was not going to break any like gaming norms with the gameplay I was going to introduce. I was trying to introduce something that I feel really passionate about, which is the theming and the setting of the game, which is deep underwater with a bunch of terrible monsters. And that's what I wanted to go forward. That is the selling point of this product. Is you get to see and interact with terrible underwater monstrosities. So that is what I focused on first and foremost, to make sure that felt right. So the gameplay isn't going to break any kind of records. It's not like anything super creative here. It's going to be a mix between probably Subnautica and Iron Lung. And
Question for you, profoundly ignorant: is Iron Lung a game?
Iron Lung, I would say, is one of the best games I've ever played, and I would completely consider it a game.
Yeah.
Real quick,
100%.
Zach, you're still hooked in. Would you like to go 3 for 3 tonight, or do we want to have a new tester up?
I'm happy to keep going.
I think the audience has grown comfortable with Zach. I don't think they could tolerate anything else.
All right, Zach.
Can we talk about the title? What is Burn Depth?
So burn depth is a narrative term in this game. Actually, burn depth came down to a limitation in my original game design. So I'm going to go way back to the time machine to when I first started making games, about almost 2 years ago, November 2020. The first game I tried to make was this little 2D sprite game about a little submarine that was in the water that would shoot fish and mine things and do all kinds of stuff. And I found out very quickly I wasn't a very good artist, and I did not want to try to do frame-by-frame animation. Oh, it's working. Good. And the frame rate doesn't look... Well, listen, I'm speaking too soon, maybe.
For the stream, it looks tolerable. We got the power shoot. Heck yeah.
Yeah, so you're seeing this thing pop up. Zach, I got to take control of the mouse again. Hold on.
Okay.
Yeah, you're seeing this because what's happening is the game is overloading my battery backup for my workstation. So every time that pops up, it means that this game is just asking for too much. So, and I don't know that there's a way around it, unfortunately.
Okay, if it might be better, I could launch it on mine and share my screen and just play through what I have.
We may have to do that because it is really not shutting up about it. So.
Well, I'm glad I got that feedback. I might have to adjust something for my laptop users.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Zach, I'm going to have to kick you off then for Parsec, and then I will just load in.
Zach doesn't get to play. Oh, I'm sorry, audience.
Zach is not giving up the mouse.
Okay, Luke, what
you have to stop moving the mouse.
Of PC performance is most taxed by Cthulhu's Dreams? Would you say?
You say that one more time? I didn't quite hear you.
Oh, I hate being forced to repeat the dumbest jokes. Basically, what is being taxed the most here?
Oh, it's definitely the render pipeline. There's a lot of fog, a lot of particles, a lot of lighting. The view distance is very large. It's a very large scene. I've tried to cull most of the animations, models, best I can, but that's just basically what's going on. I've got a lot of work to do. Like I told you, I hadn't put a whole lot of thought into optimization into getting this game in a running state until about a day and a half ago, until you messaged me. So, get back to my original point. I've done a enormous amount of work in the last 36 hours. Get here, you're going to see a lot of stuff that doesn't work. I know it don't work. It might introduce us some humorous situations.
Well, I would say too much has gone right so far tonight. So I think what we need is, in order to encourage people, I'm not kidding. Like, the more bugs, the more things that are broken are not quite there yet, and the fact that you're willing to show it to people, I think that is an important thing about playtesting. It's like there is never too early, right?
And we can start pretty strong. Like, the main menu is fantastic. I really like that already. I feel like you got a great atmosphere going on.
I've got a wonderful soundtrack that's playing right now that was commissioned by a gentleman down in Argentina, Mario Pello. He's a really, really good designer. He's created a few tracks for me.
Yeah.
Am I coming through yet on the stream?
You are not.
I'm not seeing it.
No,
Okay.
it seems to be a network issues. I'm not getting it. Discord always complains about this stuff. You never know if it's really a problem or if it's just Discord being silly.
All right, I'm gonna give it a couple more seconds, and then I'll just go to Twitch because I got OBS already up.
Oh, sure.
I'm excited for this Twitch to YouTube transfer.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we can cover a few of these YouTube comments. We did get somebody
All right,
who wanted. We got it.
I'm back. Let me try again.
Okay. Well, I am hearing something. I'm not seeing anything yet. How about you, Mark?
Yeah, for a moment I heard something. That might have been coming through someone's headphones or someone's microphone.
True.
Is it coming through?
Oh.
No. Got that annoying little exclamation point that just says, like, there's problems, but maybe it's this or that. Like, Discord.
Okay, I'm gonna go to Twitch real quick, and I'm gonna drop a link.
Okay.
Sorry for the.
All good. I do think in the meantime, I'll just comment that our friend Ben from the survival game without a name yet was in the YouTube comments. He was saying that both of the games here so far would be pretty good ports to Playdate. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, certainly the art style for our second title really lends itself very well to that. I think that the information density, the information density is an issue, I think, but because the screen resolution is 400 by 240, it's very, very low res. And yeah, I think Bits game at the top. I think so. The crank would be a really fun, mechanic. I think rather than I think there's some comments in the chat about how you'd map this to that, but I would want to introduce a charging mechanic that you actually have to wind up something. I'd want to make it a little bit more unique rather than just mapping the current things. But the game is playable with a D-pad, right, and a button or two, and that's the Playdate's got that. And the fun thing about the Playdate, it's so small and handheld that you actually could just turn it on its side and play vertically. 240 by 400.
Whoa!
There's nothing wrong with that. Still get access to the D-pad, and the crank could just rotate in a different direction.
I can't. What's the name, Mark? What's the name of the online editor for the Playdate stuff?
Pulp, I think, is what you're thinking of.
Pulp, that's what it is. I think you mentioned it maybe on the podcast or at some point. And I went in there and I started messing around with it because I was thinking this exact thing. Could I simplify this for the Playdate? So someone mentioning that was like, yeah, I haven't actually thought about that.
Yeah.
Thought that would be fun. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I'm interested in this. I love underwater stuff.
Mhm.
I'm like really looking forward to this.
Well, it looks
I
like
hate
we've
it.
got.
I hate it. If I play Iron Lung, it's gonna be purely to punish myself. I definitely have thalassophobia as my number one phobia. I remember as a little kid, I would think like I didn't have like any sort of like obsessive compulsive disorder that was ever like diagnosed, but I would definitely like feel like if I like leave this room in the wrong way, I'm
Yeah.
gonna get teleported to the middle of the ocean. Like I had those sort of like scary thoughts as a little kid.
Right.
That's
And
terrifying. Yeah.
mhm.
Oh, hey, look at that. That looks great.
The openness
Hey,
of the
like-
ocean.
Oh, here we go.
Am I coming in?
We
Yep.
got something. Yeah.
You're on screen.
Okay. Okay. So I think we're gonna have to axe sound. I think Discord's overriding my sound settings. So you just have to imagine what it sounds like.
We can hear it actually.
You can hear it?
Yep.
You can hear you hear music?
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna turn that down because it's not supposed to play right. Is the brightness okay? It usually comes in pretty dark for a stream.
Yeah, it's looking okay.
Okay. All right. So this is burn depth. Frame rate's a bit choppy with me streaming at the same time, but it should be okay. So this game has gone through. If you're gonna ask me, I've been working on this game for either almost a year and a half or 3 months. So the first game I tried to make was this game in a 2D, like Photoshop type style. Found out that that's really, really difficult, especially if you're not an artist. And I'm not an artist. I have no background in any of that. I was a jarhead. That's what I did. I didn't do this. So I went away from that and did something completely different. I worked on a tower defense strategy game for a while. Taught myself how to use Blender and do all types of things. And then about a year ago, I decided to go back to that idea of using a submarine game. Because I really like it. I really like kaiju and Godzilla and like underwater gigantic monsters beyond your imagination. You know, H.P. Lovecraft, Cthulhu, the whole deal. I love it. Subnautica is one of my favorite games. I figured I could make something like that too. So what I tried to do was make that 2D game, but with 3D model. And if you go back on my Twitter feed, there's a lot of like old videos and GIFs of that project. What I found out is that I couldn't make that game fun at all. What's fun about underwater is that you get to go around and explore and see all the nooks and crannies and see everything that's going on. But you can't do that in 2D. You don't get to go, like, you don't get to experience that, like, 3D, like, you can go any direction and find something type feel in a 2D environment. So it wasn't working. And what convinced me of that is I went out and bought every single game on Steam that was 2D and underwater. And I played every one of them. And none of them were fun. At least to me. Not to the creator's detriment, but just I think it doesn't really work. What I did see, though, is that a 3D game does work underwater. You know, obviously you can point to something like Subnautica or Abzu or Iron Lung, which really is kind of like a underwater game, in quotes, because you don't really see the underwater. There's no like third dimension to it. But you know, Subnautica and Abzu are definitely one of those. And you can see how those games work underwater because you can experience the full 3D thing. It's kind of like space. You know, space games. You want to see the full 3D realm that you get to play in. And I pivoted from that 2.5D type of build to something like a third-person submarine game, which, you know, if you go back, you can see I made that. I also found that because at the same time I was trying to make a horror experience, the third-person dimension didn't really work for this type of build. So I transitioned from that about 3 months ago, from third person to this first person type of experience. And this first person experience has vastly been changed over the last few months. From what was originally all you would be able to do was dive. you could only move in the Y direction to now you have full 3D movement. So this is the current iteration, and I think this is the direction we're going to go, where you can move around, much like you were in a Sea Moth in Subnautica, and you're going to experience, these big nasties that are going to interact with you. You're going to have a number of instruments at your disposal that will be all kinds of things. Here you can see my beautiful pathfinding at work. It's exactly the way it should have been. I think I'll put this guy out of his misery. And look at that particle effect. Beautiful. That's got to be changed. These are the dumbest fish in my game. Every one of these fish do this. I gotta figure it out. But
And just so you know, I think that Mark and I, and also I think the viewers, because we're viewing this through Twitch, are probably about like 20 seconds behind or so. So our reactions may not be very close. Like I think I don't know about you, Mark, but I think that we're just seeing the fish that you were talking about right now.
Oh no. Okay. I'll try to speak a little slower.
Ultimately, there's not that much that you can do about it. But like in terms of us like reacting to stuff that you're saying, like we're just catching up now.
No worries. I'll speak in more generalities rather than specifics on what's on screen. And if I see a specific, I'll try to hone in on it for a while. So through the development process, I focused on atmosphere first, just because I know the atmosphere and the kind of the visuals are striking with people, and that's kind of what they like about these games, chiefly. If I think about the things that have been successful in this field, they really weren't mind-blowing in terms of mechanics, with like one exception. It's mostly about the visual experience you get to go through and what you get to interact with.
What's the exception, do you think?
So this is the quotes, because I don't know if I consider. I certainly consider Iron Lung a game.
Mm-hmm.
I do not know if I consider it an underwater game. Other than that, it happens underwater. Like that's the only thing, because it only moves in two axes. There's no Y dimension.
So you're just kind of following the ground?
Yeah, and I don't know, for those who played Iron Lung, what you do is you have a map, and then you have a rotation, and then you move forward on that azimuth to whatever you are, and you're trying to navigate between channels, and you're taking pictures, and the picture mechanic is so original and unique, and it's genius. They cut off your sight, and you can only do for pictures. I love that game, and I respect the crap out of that game. But I don't know if it counts as an underwater game, quote unquote, because you don't get that third dimension. Like if I had told you that you were just a tank going around a battlefield or forest or something like that, it'd be the same.
Gotcha.
How do you go about making that map on there? Is that static?
The map. So the map I bought an asset on the Unity Asset Store that is going to analyze my terrain. I feed in my terrain asset, and I put in some parameters, and it spits out a contour map for me. And I put that contour map, I blew it up really big to match the size of my terrain, and I then put a camera above the playing field that follows the player. That's going to display both the map, but the locations of interest and also the sonar objects that go through.
Okay.
Yeah, I really like the sonar. Like it's you get a pretty good idea of what's around you, but it feels like it's more primitive than that. Like the ping is frequent enough that it's not like, it's not like you don't always know where they are at all times. But the fact that it just gets their location when the sonar hits them and they disappear, that adds a lot to the authenticity. That's my main feedback. We talked a lot about UI for the other games tonight. I think that's something that's always like trickier than it seems, and there's always difficulties on the edges, because it's about not just about usability, but about immersion and aesthetics. And I think you've done a really good job with this. it's just so much density. The viewport looking through the front window is just small enough to feel like you want it to be a little bigger, but that's great, because you're in you're in your little bathysphere. And you have just all the information you need, no more, no less. It's really well done, I think.
Well, those are kind words. I will say I probably have less kind words for the UI. I think it's kind of a mess.
Well, I think it depends on how it relates to the mechanics, right? Because I haven't seen a lot of the mechanics in action, so it's really just more about first impressions, is what I'm saying. And that
I appreciate it.
Does
That's
matter.
very kind.
I would say like first sight it feels clunky, but like intentionally so. So if you didn't do that, you accidentally fell into a very good aesthetic.
Let me give you my couple of questions, though. One
Sure.
is when the sonar ping does go out on the minimap, am I right in saying that when it reveals an object, that object doesn't move?
So it doesn't move on your map.
Okay.
The objects do move. So
Right, of course they do,
it's not
I
going
mean,
to show you terrain.
right, but the objects, I like the objects don't move on the map; they just stay where they are when the ping hit them. That's right.
They tell you where the object was.
Great. All right. Brilliant. I love it. The next thing is the battery display. You have kind of a mix of high visibility and low visibility, where you've got 70 and a half kilowatt hours left, but then and only just now did that fourth bar delete. So you kind of have a really crude representation and a very precise representation, and they're pretty far off from each other. I think that's cool because it kind of feels immersive in the sense, but I would say that it's not what the user probably wants is something in the middle of that. So the question I have for you is that an intentional bit of friction, or is it something you think you might want to refine for the benefit of the user, or do you want it to be a little bit too crude, too precise?
That wasn't the intention. If that was the result, it was accidental.
Okay.
I put it there simply because I needed to fill up space on that UI space.
Yeah.
So I threw in a battery indicator. Though I would imagine an app player would look at the high resolution battery display vice the 4 bars that are going to go on.
Right.
The 4 bars were there only to really be more of a visual pleaser.
Right, just some candy, right? I would say you can get some
some
usability on it by when one of those bars goes away, you could have it flash for 2 seconds before it goes away, just to draw the character's attention to those 4 milestones of battery depletion. That might be some usability there. And then people who want to just look at it all the time to get the precise value, they can do that too. My other question about battery is you have this drain figure, which is a rate of depletion, but it's still listed in kilowatt hours. It's kilowatt hours per what?
I think you're introducing my misunderstanding of how batteries work.
Okay. Well, I mean, a kilowatt hour is itself a unit of how much is there. Even though it's per hour, it's an abstracted value. Your total battery is measured in kilowatt hours, but then your drain is measured in kilowatt hours per what? Per.
Yeah, but you know that if he does kilowatt hours per, and that's gonna those gonna cancel out, and he should just say number of watts, right?
I mean,
no, I mean literally, it's negative 0.15 When does it go down by 0.15?
Whereas a kilowatt hour should go down once per. Well, it's not even really how that works.
It's not really per second, but it is every few seconds.
Right. If it's per second, you just want to slash
go
S
down every
there.
5 seconds. It updates the UI.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. That should be something that's a little more, I don't know, clear.
Mm-hmm.
If I put kilowatt hours and it goes down by every 5 seconds, it doesn't really make much sense. Because it should go down every hour.
No. I'm not saying that at all. It should say kilowatt hours per second.
Gotcha.
Right,
Gotcha.
right.
That would.
Like, kilowatt hour is a unit of storage. It's not. It is per hour, but that's an abstracted amount. So your total battery storage kilowatt hours. That's correct. But the drain just needs we just need a denominator.
I will add that to my list. Bugs to fix. It's a long list.
I do like that the value changes, presumably depending on how much energy you're using, right?
Yeah. So if I was to turn on all my instruments,
Yeah.
I'll turn on the radio and whatever.
Oh, dude,
That's how it
that-
changes down.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
I mean, look, certainly, I mean, not knowing exactly how that matters, if you could ever recharge, or if it's just you got to get to a place by a certain place, like not knowing how it mechanically goes, I think there's a lot of utility that you've built in that can be really, really fun and really like add a lot of tension.
Can you turn off the sonar?
Yes, you can. You can
Okay.
turn off pretty much everything.
Ooh, cool.
Let's see. What
Oh
else is still
man.
on?
Well,
I can't
that's
hear it,
great.
so
That's the game. That's the type of game
like,
I think this
what
is.
I'm wondering is, do you like are there going to be moments? Oh, this is great. This is great because like if you have everything off, it's like you're like stealthy. You're not burning very much, but you're so ignorant on what's going on. You only have the visual. That's really
right.
good.
So you guys can't see it yet, but I just came upon like a big one of the probably the bad guys over here,
Yeah,
and I had no idea he was there until I saw him.
Oh yeah.
If he had his AI done already, he probably could have already attacked me. And the actual one of the goals for this mission is to get to what's beyond him. And part of the mechanics are going to be is that these monsters that you're going to encounter, they're going to interact with your instruments. Some of them aren't going to like having lights shined on, or some of them are going to be drawn to you when you have your lights shined on, or some of them aren't going to like the sonar, or whatever else that you might have. There'll be a loadout. You'll get more instruments as you play. That's the idea, at least by now. And you'll have to figure out which loadout works best for which area, and what's going on, and how best to get to the objectives that you need to get to.
This almost feels like Descent and Shadow of the Colossus, somehow. Does that make sense?
That's a good description. The only thing I will say is that the goal is not to kill the enemies. So I've given you a weapon here, and you'll probably get other weapons as well. I haven't quite decided, but I would like to introduce situations and encounters where every one of them is solvable without the weapon. I want the weapon to have a massive energy use to it. So that way you know that when you've used it, that's like your get out of jail card. But you don't have many of those left. And if you want to keep going, you've got to learn how to use the rest of your instruments at your disposal. You shouldn't be able to, from a thematic and kind of a feel thing, but these are, unknowable creatures beyond your understanding. Not necessarily here, because this is kind of like the most normal stage. It's going to get way weirder as you get further down.
Cool.
But your weapon shouldn't be much of a concern to them. And I want you to only have to use your weapon when you find yourself in a very tricky situation.
Yeah.
Not something you rely on. It's not going to be like Call of Cthulhu, like 2008, where you're, gunning down Dagon, and it's not going to be like that.
Yeah.
I'm excited about this, man. This looks really cool. I just wanted to kind of echo one of the things you said earlier about, like, to you, like, what makes an underwater game is having that third axis of movement. And I think before you got the thing kind of working and you were getting set up on Twitch and stuff, we were talking about just underwater stuff in general. And I really like this kind of stuff. Like, I find it weirdly comforting for some reason. And there's something about this where it's like it's like flight. And I feel like that's the same thing with like space games where you can move in a free 360 degrees. But there's something about doing it in water that just like feels like languid and just kind of comfortable to me. I don't know. But the idea of like making it horrific with like existentially horrifying creatures and stuff just sounds really cool. Like,
Yeah.
This looks awesome. Just one other critique is, you said you were a jarhead. My brother was too, but he's literally an artist, so I don't know what you're talking about. I literally know an artist jarhead.
Well,
But, you know,
there's not many of us about.
yeah, it's probably uncommon.
We're
This
too
looks
busy
great, man.
eating the crowns and using them.
I really do feel like this really hits that vibe, I guess you of like tension and horrors. Like I'm kind of glued, like with the sound design too, and the like constant ping of like at any moment like something really creepy could come and show up, and like just that tension alone is kind of holding me glued to this. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, and the
Kinda
engine
glued to the
sound
screen.
too. The engine sound too is like has been really good. Like I'd be curious if there was moments where you would want to like kill your engine or just like stand there for a while so that you could hear to just hear in the audio. Like, is there a certain like sort of monster like waiting out there for you?
So the engine's actually bugged right now. If I don't have this attitude indicator on, it's not going to adjust. It should adjust with your velocity. So it's probably going to catch up with you right now. I'm stand still, and now it should be silent. That will be something you'll have to use. I don't have the sound design quite, all the sounds quite where they should be, so I don't have them implemented. But the sounds should be very key to how you actually interact with the world. You need to listen to what's going on.
I was gonna say like the biggest thing that I think that you're gonna have to overcome, at least as far as I'm considering, is the player learning like how the enemies interact with your kit, because I'm imagining that this might have some like sort of puzzle-ish elements to it, where like you have to figure out how your sonar and your like laser and everything interact with enemies. And I'm wondering like how do you learn that like a particular enemy has a reaction to a particular piece of your gear?
So the best answer I have for you right now is trial and error, and that's not really the answer I want to have, because I want mistakes to be costly. Like I don't want some Lovecraftian monster to hit you and then you walk away from it. And then you come back in a few seconds and, oh, okay, I need to do this. And he's forgotten all about the situation.
Right, because honestly, like if you like die a whole lot in any horror game, you start taking it less seriously. It's just a reaction that I've seen a lot of people have.
Okay, so I got an idea for this. So I think the audio does a really great job with this, but also just like the way movement works and like the sort of the way that you've laid out the terrain too. It just feels like the slowness of it is such a virtue. In a case where like you really could, I think you do need to give the player an aim, a goal, because they might give but having it take a while to reach where you're going. If you're doing even more than just exploring, if you're actually headed somewhere, it taking forever is great. I love it. But what I think is what you can do is to give players a way to figure that stuff out without trial and error, which is a normal video game thing, right? So if you want to make mistakes really costly, then you want to, and that works really well for the survival horror aspect of it. But I think what you want to do is you want to write a 400-page manual that is in the capsule, that as you can put it on autopilot and head down the trench.
Oh my god!
And turn on your little headlamp, look down, and flip through this spiral-bound, jargony manual that's in universe. I think that's.
Oh my gosh!
And let players absorb as much as they want, and when they get bored of it, then they can go try some shit, and then like make that recklessness very costly. But also let players decide when they're just done reading the manual and want to see how the world works. Because then those players are going to be a little bit more afraid. But if they absorb the information, then they can feel a little bit more like they can feel prepared, which is something that in survival horror, that preparation is so satisfying when you like are able to prepare for a thing in front of you. But if you haven't tried it in a tutorial or it's not your third time through, even though you feel prepared on paper, it's still thrilling and scary. So that's my pitch for making players read, which we all know players don't like to do, but I think it could really work here.
I really like that idea. My only issue is that it conflicts narratively, and I can always throw away the narrative. The game's not a slave to the narrative here.
Well, tell me about it. Tell me about the narrative.
The narrative is essentially, okay, I'll show you. Burn Death is the highest that you can go without essentially frying yourself. And the alarms and sound is going to be really loud here in a second. My apologies. But the reason you can't go any higher is that a long time ago something happened, and that's going to be explored through the story. I won't kind of spoil that right now. I'll let this play just because I really like this alarm sound, even though it's kind of jarring. And then I'll cut it off right now because I know it's really loud. So humanity is trapped under the waves. They're not allowed to go up. The surface is untenable. The only people that survived were future people who happened to be underwater at the time. They've created a civilization down here that is struggling, but they are doing okay. And you are on an expedition with that big submarine at the beginning. He drives you around, and you dive around to get all the cool stuff. To find a path through this unexplored portion of the sea. And in this path, there are going to be things that are not present in our current reality. No one has seen, no one has any information about. And that's going to be one of the goals that you need to do, is you need to find information about this path and about what you encounter in this path so you can give it back to the people you work for so they can figure out a way through here so they can expand their borders, their kingdom, however it's going to be. That's the general idea. You're like a future underwater. I think that's how I explained it to Lane. A future underwater Lewis and Clark.
Okay.
So the idea I had for kind of doing what you're saying is have a bestiary, but that you have to earn those entries. So I had a mechanic in here, and I cut it and then I put it back and I cut it again. I might put it back where you had a big giant like needle is the best way I can say it. And if you wanted to get information about exactly what an enemy does, you had to sneak up on them and jab them with it. And they would analyze it and then tell you what's going on with this creature. That way you have a low risk reward. My only problem with that is that it might screw with the pacing.
Hey, one idea to piggyback off of Mark's, because I actually like Mark's idea a lot with like the giant manual, like the bureaucratic garbage font, and it's just obnoxious. But like if you combine that with maybe the idea that like, I mean, I don't know how this fits into your narrative or not, but like if the Bathyscape you're in, I assume there's other people out there doing the same thing, right? It's not just the one person.
Yes, there are other people.
So I want. I mean, maybe it's like, what's the word, anathemic or something. But like, what if instead of like a giant manual, this is more of, like you said, like a bestiary, but like it has sort of hand-drawn, remembered images, like vaguely that people saw. Like, I think I saw this thing, and I turned my light on, and it ran away. So I don't really know anything. So really what you're doing is you're trying to fill in the gaps in this information about those things. Like,
yeah, it's not complete information.
Partial
right?
knowledge. Yeah, so you have like partial knowledge, but not like enough that like you're totally prepared, but that you know something about it at least.
Yeah, that's what I love about the idea of. That's why I propose the idea that it being an in-universe manual, is because you can have
like a diegetic.
It can be the 10 years ago expedition figured out all this stuff, and you're out there and you're following the same rules, and it kind of matches up. And either you have to, get out your actual spiral notebook on your desk in front of your computer and make your own notes, or there's a mechanic of updating, as sort of how you're describing. It feels a little, maybe Pokemon is not the right comparison, but that kind of idea of like filling out a bestiary, I think that doesn't appeal to me as much, I think. Maybe because it's familiar.
It does make for like a pretty good invisible tutorial of just like, at the very least, is like your first enemies to like kind of explain both in detail like the beginning enemies, like their behaviors and stuff, and like just fill out and show how much this game like deals with the AI and like how the different creatures behave differently, and then as things get weirder, that detail becoming sparser, but like you still have that context in your head for what they might be doing, and it gives you a better sense for figuring out that yourself what they might be capable of.
Yeah, or even like geological information about like where they were seen. Like maybe this one was seen by like a vent that has a lot of arsenic in it or something.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, and you're in that kind of area, you know, if you're looking at your instruments, maybe it's giving you all the information you need to like flip your book and be like, is this thing? I need some kind of information. Because if you give people no information, I think the trial and error thing could get frustrating with the travel times. But again, Mark's 100% right. Like the long travel times are actually great for building tension, and just I want to spend time in this space anyway.
Yeah.
It's just great, but that would be really frustrating to just like, oh holy shit, I just showed up, this thing is here and now I'm dead. Like that kind of sucks.
What's that?
But if it's like, okay, I can
what's that
shut
space
down all my
game
stuff and like look at my book.
that everybody plays? That's also very boring, and you travel like real
Oh,
time.
Eve,
I
I
don't
know.
know what those.
No, it's not Eve. Eve is more exciting.
Elite
than this.
Dangerous?
Elite Danger?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Space Truck Simulator.
Right.
Yeah.
That, like, I don't know if that's what you want, but and I'm not actually the type of person to play a game where I sit down for many hours just to make it from A to B. But there is definitely an audience there, and this feels like it would be really good in that kind of genre. I mean, we're kind of shooting in the dark here as we watch you go through, because we don't really know the feeling that you want for the game. Like, do you want it to be mission-based? Do you want it to be open world? Do you want it to be like how long till a player feels that sense of satisfaction? That kind of pacing. It's there's lots of ways you can do it, I think. So it's any suggestions we make come bundled with our own expectations of how we might do that.
You know, for the record, I'm one of those space trucker game guys. Like I really like that kind of thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
And I will say, oh sweet, what is this?
Horrifying.
Just off the bat, I know you're probably going for a bit of a claustrophobic feel, what with the whole like submarine thing, but the constricted field of view for the space trucker people, I like to look out the window a little more. This feels really like there's just so much black on the screen. It's almost like it's pulling my eyes away from the ocean occasionally. Like I just want to wander over to one of those like, yawning void regions that are taking up so much space.
I will
So
say
yeah,
that might be because I'm playing in 21:9.
Yeah.
This isn't the resolution you're supposed to be playing in.
Yeah, we got some
It's
black
just
bars.
my native monitor.
Was that second water right there?
That actually happens. That is a real world phenomenon
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
Zach, and I love
Huh.
seeing it.
Okay.
That isn't a silt
Brian
silt lake. That's not what that is, but it is
Ah.
something like that.
Cool.
There's going to be there's going to be a B plot that's happening essentially and stuff like that.
Oh, that is wonderful.
Your A plot's going to be find a way through this zone. The B plot is what is actually going on, and that's going to be part of it. And that's something you're free to ignore if you'd like, but you would be rewarded if you do.
I'm curious, Luke. Mine is going to take a long time, Zach. Why don't you go?
Have you played any Outer Wilds?
I have, and I have a very hot take on that game.
Interesting.
I wasn't a fan.
Okay.
I know people love
I
it.
was not a fan either.
Tell us why.
It was.
good.
I didn't like how it was told. My biggest problem is there was no voice acting and no characters, and I didn't like that. I couldn't get invested. I only played about an hour. I got to when they shot me out, and then I had to go find people, and I couldn't get past that. And I know there's a lot past that because I've seen reviews, and they told me not to watch it if I haven't played it. I said I played it, and then they told me all the stuff that happened. I was like, oh well, I guess I missed this. I'll spill it now. But I can get why people like it. I couldn't get past that barrier to entry for the first couple hours.
Interesting. I see a lot of parallels that just like on the surface level, like UI wise, is like the ships look very similar, the dome front and like the diegetic UI around it. As well as there's a particular level that is just kinda this, but with only one fish. With that criticism, are you planning on doing a lot of voice acting for this?
Yes, I'll have a fully custom soundtrack. Everything's gonna be voice acted. This radio here that you guys can probably hear here in a few seconds. It's going to be a big tool. It's not implemented right now, because I don't have the voice lines recorded, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But this is going to be something that you use to communicate the guy that you're working with. Number one, he's going to tell you where to go. So instead of these big orange squares that you see in the map, he'll be guiding you, and he might put those squares in the map because he'll have some instruments that you don't. But it's essentially saying, I need you to go east or west, northwest, or go on this heading. Find this. We're getting some readings here. Find out this area of locations or area of interest. But the environment's also going to interact with you. So the creatures I have in mind for this are not dumb, just fish. That they're intelligent beings that are going to try to interact with you. And there's you probably can barely see it, but there's a big orange light on here. So when you have this thing deactivated, that orange light is going to blink and tell you that you're being hailed on your radio. You'll have to figure out which channel it is, or you might be able to figure out what channel it is on yourself and try to ping it so you can figure it out yourself. Get it before it gets you, so you get some extra dialogue. Where you'll be able to interact with the rest of the world. There also might be other explorers down here that you can talk with that might give you certain information, or they might be hostile, that will try to hail you on that VLF. But that's not implemented yet. That's a little ways down the road.
I really dig the crashes. I like how they jerk the ship towards the crash. I don't know how that feels gameplay wise. That might change that a little bit, but it looks really cool.
I'm glad it looks good. It doesn't. I'll be honest. I don't think it feels great.
Okay.
It might be the sound. I don't like the sound. That was a placeholder sound. I think it needs more of a thud than a scratch, personally. And I think it almost feels like it pulls you, like you were running and like you had a string attached to you, and someone pulled back on that string almost.
Yeah.
That might. It's. I think it might be the collider I'm using. I'm using a sphere collider. I might need to go to. Well, I wouldn't say a box collider, but maybe a capsule. I don't know if that would help. I'm not quite sure how to fix that. Maybe add some mass to it.
You might be able to avoid the whole collision thing by making it bounce you away and then rotate you towards it, so that you're still getting that jerk and lack of control, but it's more of on a programmatic side rather than just letting the physics engine do what it will.
That's a good idea. I'll look into that. Sure.
So looking at the sonar there, you've got a zoomed out view now. Is that something you toggle?
Yes, I'll toggle it a bunch of times so you guys can see it here.
I think what you can do is that the sonar wave, when it's zoomed in, I feel like it should extend past the edges of the screen instead of disappear. I know that actual sonars do sometimes visual sensations will actually have them disappear. But then when you zoom out, have it fade away to indicate the range of its extension, or instead of just disappear. Because when you're zoomed out, it looks kind of broken.
I see what you're saying. That's a good idea. Maybe I could have multiple sonar pings going on at one time, kind of showing that that the sound carries beyond just the range of your view scope.
If it does, if that's true. I feel like I might be coming in a little bit late with this, but I was just curious if you could walk us through a story of one interaction between the player character and one of the enemies. How do you envision that going in an actual level?
So there is one of the interesting things you're going to see here, and it's not to make it obviously this environment is very dead right now. I need to add a lot of foliage. It's not going to be like Subnautica where there's a lot of bright colors and big shiny things and coral reefs and whatever. I want the world to feel kind of dead because it kind of is. But there's going to be more than just what you see here. One thing you're going to see is these sprawling tentacles coming out of that black goo that you saw earlier that come through, and they kind of just go around the entire area.
Mhm.
When you go into that pool, you're going to encounter a being I call the Lost Navigator. That is kind of a prion, a envoy of something that lies far deeper below the depths of the ocean.
Mhm.
And it's dead, but it's still going to talk to you and tell you some cryptic crap that you're not going to understand.
Yeah.
But I don't know if anybody here plays Warhammer. The idea is that these are elder gods, but they're more along the lines of Nurgle than Tzeentch. That they actually
Gotcha.
care about you than find you like disgusting and don't like care about you. I don't know if you play Warhammer. That should be an apt description.
Well, I know
for
what
you.
you're talking about. Yeah.
That they actually care about you. They want you for their perverted things, but the way Nurgle does.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that's kind of going to be the idea that they are alluring to you, but what they want isn't going to be good for you, and that the thing that's going to be good for you is going to be a completely different side of this. Because the reason you can't go to the surface is not because of those things; it's going to be because of something else. But the things that those things did, I know I'm being very. I'm sorry. I don't want to.
Sure, but but like it is a mysterious game. It sounds like there's like multiple. There's not just one sort of faction down there. Is what I'm hearing. Is that at all close?
That's true. There's not type one faction. There's two main factions, and you're stuck in between them. And they don't really care that much between you about you, but they're very much bigger than you, and they don't need to care about you. The same way, like the native wildlife population doesn't get much consideration when China and the USA decide to go bomb each other. Right?
Yes.
I'm liking the lineup of esoteric storytelling that we have tonight.
Oh yeah.
Well, we're 3 minutes shy of the end of the night, so I think it's time for wrap up. If there's any questions we have for our developer we hadn't gotten to yet, or any thoughts we haven't shared.
One last one real quick. How many times have you watched the extended director's cut of The Abyss?
I'll be honest, I've actually never seen it. It was a little before my time.
Oh my god! You just call me old? I get that a lot. It's but it like
classics.
Considering when it came out, like there's some pretty good stuff in there that you might be able to just draw from even.
I'll check it out.
Not that you need to, but it was one of my favorite movies as a kid.
Sounds like I need to.
I feel like we have seen a couple of games like this where they and Mark, I don't know if you have any wisdom about this sort of situation where a lot of times people will say, like, when you're making a game, you want to sort of like quickly prototype out all the mechanics. And yeah, occasionally you'll find a game where they just absolutely slam dunk one of the aesthetic elements, but they don't have all those those mechanical elements in place yet. I mean, I don't know what to say other than like, Luke, please come back on the show. I have to see how this works out. Yeah. But like, Mark, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on like what to do if you're in this situation where you clearly have mastery over one part of the game, but the other parts are kind of still a roll of the dice?
I will say, I don't know. I wouldn't be so bold as to call it wisdom, but I do have thoughts on this, which is, as someone who does attack it from all directions, I sympathize with the position where you are you're designing visually a lot of how the feel, and even like narrative and story, those parts before, a little bit ahead of yourself than mechanics or game feel. That is fine. Like, I think the common wisdom that, like, make sure you use crappy dev art and just get the mechanics figured out first so you don't waste so much time. I think that undervalues the holistic sense of how a game looks, how it sounds, how it, like, the multimedia experience of it. I think that is I think it's bad advice. It is, however, practical advice, because what happens when you kind of fire on all cylinders and then you end up, some things get a little bit ahead of other things, you're going to have to redo those things. Like, that is just the truth. Like, you will create your characters, your backgrounds, your environments. You will do all of this work aesthetically. And then as the rest of your game progresses, you will start to realize you have to redo some of that stuff that you thought was finished. And that sucks. But that's also fine. Like, that's part of the iterative process. I think people are very comfortable iterating on mechanics and even iterating in code way more than they're comfortable iterating on polished visuals. Because you can polish some visuals, but then after a while, they're no longer the right visuals for your game. Now, that can be true for any other part of your game, but I think we are taught as developers to, once you polish things, it's done, you don't touch it anymore. But if you're comfortable with the truth that you're going to have to tear down the delicate and precise structure that you've put together as other things in your project catch up. If you're comfortable with that, then I say focus on whatever thing you want first, whatever you're most comfortable with. Certainly for a survival horror game, for something that's all atmospherics, I think it would be malpractice to focus just on the movement and instrument mechanics without doing what has been done here, which is to provide all that atmosphere. But like I've sort of said, that bit of warning, you are going to have to tear some of that down and rebuild it later on. And you don't know when you're going to do it. The trick is not getting too attached to it to the point where it starts to drag down the rest of your project. Because that is a serious risk, because you look at all the work you've done and you don't want to throw it away. But if you get comfortable with the reality that you're going to probably throw some of it away, then you can start. You're like, oh, but this great idea I had yesterday that I didn't think very far on because it meant I would have to redo all this stuff. Now that I know it's okay to redo all this stuff, I can do this great idea. So that's the long and short of it, I think.
Well, I will say that submarine design you've seen is the 7th time I've designed that submarine. So you're 100% correct. The only silver lining is that I now have like a half dozen assets I can just throw in as things to go look at. Mm-hmm. So some of the stuff you guys saw are just old assets that used to be the player character, but now are just going to be setting dressing.
Mm-hmm. Look for any practicalities or any ways you can make your process efficient. Like, there's still, don't resign yourself to just spinning your wheels, because that is also bad. But it seems like you got the right attitude. It's like you're willing to throw it out, but save it for something else, or see what use the whole buffalo, right?
That's really good advice, and you're absolutely correct. I was told many times, make your game with basic Unity shapes and basic lighting, and see how that works. Mm-hmm. And it just, I don't know. I wasn't excited about the project. I guess it's probably the best thing I can say is when I was doing that. Like, I wasn't excited to get up every day and try to work on this thing when I was looking at, a block and the basic skybox. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to look at something, and I found that fun. And if I didn't find it fun, I would have quit a year ago.
Yeah, I think that advice really works for some people, but some people have to love the project that they're working on, and they don't love it unless it looks like a lovable project, and this one totally does. The other thing is that right now you could toss up a screenshot or a 15-minute clip, and all of a sudden you've got fans and people who want to follow this because of the atmosphere pulls people in, when that wouldn't be true in a mechanically gifted white box Unity game.
Yeah, I guess it's smart for the early marketing that devs have to do to get things going. I would caution that that is a really quick way to get attached to things that you should start throwing away.
Dang, Mark, that's absolutely true, because right now he still has this massive hurdle, which is how enemies are supposed to be mysterious, and yet as a player I'm supposed to interact with them. Yeah. How does that work? I feel like that could be terrible. I feel like that's been a bunch of games and that have not worked out well. I want this to work, mm-hmm. but I still have no idea if he's going to be able to clear that hurdle. That sounds like a difficult one.
Yeah, it's all things in moderation.
Let you know for sure.
There's no one right formula, which is very annoying. But that's the case.
Well, I'll certainly be back on to tell you how it went.
Yeah, awesome.
And you are absolutely right. I'm running a risk here, not getting these mechanics nailed down shut before I started making nice and pretty stuff. but that's why I spent a year and a half trying to figure out what game I was making, and I've been making this game for 3 months. So
Not a relatable thing to any user here on the stream, I'm sure. Well, I know that Mark and Dale are gonna have some closing remarks as well, but I think that was what's gonna make this a tremendous story. I definitely hope you come back because that extra risk element. I mean, this could turn out incredible. But yeah, I want to know how it turns out either way.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for being here. I guess I'll turn this over to Mark and Dale.
We always give the last word to Dale to say something hilarious on the way out, and we always explain that we do that. Just to sort of ruin it a little bit. So without further ado, Dale,
I really appreciate that.
Close us out.
So let me tell you that you will not regret the time spent aboard my vessel. You are going to travel through a wonderland.